I opened my son's Instagram live and saw he was standing on the edge of a building. Welcome to Fact or Cap. What the hell? What was Justin doing? I could see the likes popping up on the corner of the screen. Guys, I had no idea, but today Mr. Foley told us that Red Bull gives you wings. Today we're gonna test if that's cap or not. No, please tell me this is a joke. But I could see he was on the roof of his school. I instantly swiped off the live and dialed his teacher. Hello? My son is on the roof of the school. I think he's about to jump, but she just laughed and said, "Sir, those doors are locked. There's no way he's up there." I swiped back onto the live. Now there were more of his classmates up there, and they all started yelling, "Chug, chug, chug." I swiped back to the phone call and yelled, "Oh my God, you have to hurry. He's about to jump." I was already jumping in my car, sweating through my clothes, but I heard her say, "Wait, no. The door is locked. I can't get up there." Locked? How did they lock it? I swiped back to the live and watched as his classmates were pushing things in front of the door to the roof, all standing in front of it so nobody could stop him. He was getting ready to jump again. I couldn't let my son die because of Mr. Foley's dumb lie, so I broke every traffic law just to get there. I was speeding with one hand, watching the live with the other. Okay guys, Mr. Foley better have been telling the truth. Kids were typing, "Do it," and "Fly Justin," and I was going 90 down that residential road. I screeched into the parking lot and saw him up there. I was almost out of time, and just as I burst through the school doors, I heard them yelling, "Justin, don't jump!" But they were already counting down. I ran up the stairs and saw multiple teachers pounding on the door to get onto the roof, one being Mr. Foley, and as bad as I wanted to punch him in the face, I had to get to Justin first. I could hear them outside. 3, 2, 1, no! And just as we all busted through that door, we saw Justin running toward the edge of the building. I screamed, "Justin, no!" But he jumped. He flew off the edge of the building, thinking he was about to fly. Everyone screamed, cried, and he hit the ground. I looked over at Mr. Foley. "You told him to jump off the roof?" He tried to make up an excuse. How was I supposed to know he'd believe me? I was just joking. And in that moment, I couldn't hold back. As they loaded him into the ambulance, I shoved Mr. Foley off the roof too. My little brother was constantly coming home from school with new cuts and bruises, but when I asked him about it, he told me he was playing football at school. His school was next to mine, so at lunch, I went over to see what was really going on. He wasn't anywhere near any of the kids playing football, but when I asked a kid where he was, he pointed to a corner. I walked over and saw him sitting, reading a book, and just as I was about to leave, I heard a familiar voice. I turned around and saw my ex-girlfriend and her best friend go up to him. They started making fun of him, throwing things at him, even grabbing his book out of his hands, ripping it in half. Then she even went as far as to kick him a few times. I immediately stormed over and told her to get out of there, but I could tell this wasn't the end. My mom wanted to tell the principal and get her expelled, but I had a better idea. The next day, I took him to the ice cream shop where she worked and told him to go get some. He's deathly allergic to gluten and dairy, so after he asked for it to be specially made, I knew she would try something. I stood in a corner where I could see her making it and managed to get a video on my phone of her mixing in milk and wafers to the bottom. This would have killed him. I showed the manager, and instead of getting expelled, she now has a criminal record. After 8 years on death row, I was ready to die. They said I killed Rebecca. My fingerprints were on the knife. My blood was at the scene. I told them I didn't do it, but nobody believed me. I spent years fighting, filed every appeal, exposed every contradiction in the evidence. None of it mattered. My lawyer stopped returning my calls. My appeals were exhausted. My family stopped visiting 2 years ago. Even my own mother thought I did it. The only person who ever believed me was my grandmother, and she passed away 5 years ago. So when they asked what I wanted for my last meal, I thought of her. Her meatloaf, the one she made me every birthday. I wrote out her recipe from memory, every measurement and technique precise. An hour later, the prison chef showed up at my cell holding my form. "What is this?" "Meatloaf. This is a novel, not a recipe. Ground beef 60%, ground pork 40, breadcrumbs soaked in whole milk for exactly 10 minutes, yellow onion, not white, sautéed in butter until translucent, fresh thyme, not dried, Worcestershire, 2 tablespoons, no substitutes, and this glaze with brown sugar and apple cider vinegar, brushed on at 340 degrees, 20 minutes before done." He looked at me through the bars. "Why so specific? It's how my grandmother made it. She's gone now. If I'm going to die Friday, I want to taste her cooking one last time." He was quiet for a moment. "Some of these ingredients we don't stock. Fresh thyme, whole milk, real butter. I'll have to special order them. I have 48 hours. He sighed. "I'll make it exactly how you wrote it." Thursday morning, the ingredients arrived and the chef started cooking. I could smell it from my cell an hour later. Onions sautéing in butter. Grandma's kitchen. Saturday mornings, her humming while she cooked. I sat on my bunk and cried for the first time in 8 years. Thursday afternoon, the chef ran into problems. The oven temperature wouldn't hold steady. He had to recalibrate, start over on the glaze twice. It has to be perfect, he told the warden. It's his last meal. Thursday night, I couldn't sleep. Not from fear, from the smell. The meatloaf baking through the night while I sat alone with memories of the only person who believed I was innocent. Friday, execution day. 10 a.m. and no meal yet. Noon, and the chef said the glaze wasn't right. 2 p.m. a guard brought regular prison lunch because the meatloaf still wasn't ready. 4 p.m. 2 hours left. The smell was overwhelming. Guards kept walking past the kitchen just to breathe it in. 5 p.m. the warden came to my cell. Your meal isn't ready. We're delaying the execution 2 hours. 6 p.m. came and went. The original execution time. I was still alive, waiting for meatloaf. 7:30. The chef finally appeared with a covered plate. He looked exhausted. He uncovered it, and the meatloaf looked exactly like my grandmother's. I ate slowly, savored every bite. Perfect. I finished the last bite at 7:51. 9 minutes left. The guard opened my cell. Time to go, Preston. They walked me down the hallway past other cells. Inmates were silent. They always were during execution walks. We reached the preparation room. The chaplain asked if I wanted to pray. I said no. 7:55. 5 minutes. They started walking me toward the chamber. That's when the warden's phone rang. He answered and his face changed. Stop. Everyone stop moving. What's happening? Rebecca's ex-boyfriend just confessed to her murder. You're innocent. My legs gave out. A guard caught me. The chef appeared in the hallway out of breath. He slid down the wall and sat next to me. If that meatloaf had been ready on time, you'd already be gone. I just sat there, still alive. Because my grandmother's recipe was too complicated to rush. She saved my life. She always did. My brother was promoted to head surgeon at Dad's retirement party. Then a patient's widow stood up. My brother Michael was everything our surgeon father wanted. Harvard medical degree, perfect surgical record, golf club membership. I went to state medical school and worked at a free clinic treating addicts and homeless patients. At Dad's retirement party from chief of surgery, Michael was getting his position while I sat at table 12 with the janitors. Dad stood at the podium praising Michael's flawless career to 200 guests, including the hospital board. Michael represents the best of medicine, he said. While I knew Michael took bribes from pharmaceutical companies and billed insurance for procedures he never performed, Michael took the microphone and made a toast about carrying on the tradition of excellence, not like some doctors who waste their talents in homeless shelters. Looking directly at me while everyone laughed, he walked past my table, stopped, and said loud enough for others to hear, maybe when you're done playing Mother Teresa with the junkies, I can find you a position cleaning bedpans. His wife laughed. Their perfect children applauded. And I sat there burning because everyone thought he was perfect when I knew he was a fraud. My own mother said, at least one of my sons made something of himself, looking directly at me. Michael was getting his third standing ovation when I noticed a woman in black near the back, holding an iPad and staring at Michael with pure hatred. When Michael raised his champagne glass, I saw her mouth the word murderer. Michael was mid-sentence when the woman stood up. My husband wasn't your first patient to die, was he, doctor? The room went silent as she walked forward. 3 years ago, you operated on my husband Druck, Alan Martinez, the construction worker with the routine hernia repair who mysteriously died on your table. I felt my stomach drop. I knew Michael was corrupt, but I had no idea he was a killer. Michael's face drained of color. I don't know what you're talking about, ma'am. You need to leave. She held up her iPad. I have the security footage the hospital thought they deleted. She connected it to the presentation screen. Everyone watched Michael stumble into the OR at 2 in the morning, clearly intoxicated, pushing past a nurse who tried to stop him. That's my husband on the table, she said as Michael scrubbed in while swaying. The hospital paid me $2 million to stay quiet, but I kept everything. The toxicology report showing your blood alcohol was 0.18. The emails from hospital lawyers coaching me to lie. The falsified death certificate. Dad stood up, face purple with rage. Tell me she's lying, you demanded. Michael couldn't look at him. Dad, I can explain. You killed patients? You operated drunk and I promoted you? His voice broke. I defended you to everyone, including your brother. There were 2 other families, the widow announced. We've been planning this for months. 2 more families walked through the doors. One holding a photo of their dead daughter, another of their father. Catherine Walsh died during routine gallbladder surgery. Robert Franklin died during knee replacement. Both operated on by Dr. Michael while intoxicated. The board president stood. Dr. Michael, your medical license is suspended immediately pending criminal investigation. Security escorted Michael out. His wife grabbed their children and fled. Dad stood there shaken, looking at me for the first time in years. Really looking at me. I backed the wrong son. The CEO approached me. We need someone with integrity to rebuild trust. Will you accept chief of surgery? I looked at my father's empty chair, then at the room full of people who just watched the golden child fall, and said yes. We were sitting in class when my teacher yelled, "Did someone eat these?" But we all started laughing. She was holding up the pack of candy on her desk. Mitch laughed. Yeah, you had a bunch in that pack. And as soon as he said that, our teacher instantly started panicking. No. How many? How many of you ate them? At least 8 of us ate them. Well, we just wanted something sweet. I thought you left them out for us, but they didn't actually taste that sweet, which is weird. Our teacher was panting, but sat down to call someone. We heard her whisper, "Oh my God, the kids in my class ate them. What do I do? Oh my God." We were all looking at each other now, starting to get worried. "Hey teacher, what were those candies?" But she didn't respond. She just ran out to grab Ms. Grant from across the hall. But when she took one look at the container on the desk, she literally gasped. "You gave them those!" Now my classmates were starting to get worried. Liza was trying to hold back her tears because she ate the most out of anyone. Our teacher was sobbing now. We were really scared now. Ms. Grant just said, "We need the nurse," but our teacher tried to stop her. Wait, maybe they didn't eat enough to, but it was too late. Mitch yelled, "What were they? Were they bad?" But the bell rang. The day was over, but when we tried to leave, the nurse blocked us. "None of you are leaving." My classmates were starting to cry now because it must have been poisonous. Ambulances showed up, and paramedics came inside and started asking everybody questions. Liza started having a panic attack, hyperventilating, her skin turning gray. The paramedics were rushing to treat her, but someone banged on the door. It was our parents. Liza's dad got there first, and when he saw his daughter, he lost it. "Hey, what the hell did you do to my girl?" But nobody let them inside the room. Our teacher was bawling her eyes out, and they were making so much noise our principal showed up. He pushed his way through shouting, "What did you do? Why are there ambulances here?" She whispered something to him. We couldn't hear what she said, but we saw his face. His eyes went wide. "You brought those to school?" The parents went absolutely ballistic. Liza's dad shoved past everyone and grabbed the principal by the shirt collar. "What did you give my daughter?" Other parents started joining in, screaming, getting in the principal's face. Finally, the principal just snapped. He threw his hands up and screamed, "Relax, okay? Just relax. What was it? Nothing's gonna happen. She just might get pregnant." Liza's dad just stared at him shocked. "Pregnant? Pregnant? What do you mean?" Then, as he was literally about to punch him in the face, but just as he swung, our teacher yelled, "Wait!" She told him to stop and stepped up. "I've been trying for a baby, but it isn't working. These pills are supposed to help me get knocked up. They all ate my fertility pills." Everyone was speechless. Mitch said, "Wait, so our teacher's trying to get freaky?" "The night I robbed my father was the night I stopped hating him. My dad kept a metal chest in the corner of our garage that nobody was allowed to touch. It sat there for years, covered in cobwebs, with faded red letters that said, 'Do not open.' When I was 8 and my brother Joel was 6, we got caught just standing near it, not touching it, just looking. Dad's face turned purple. He grabbed the thickest belt from the wall and locked us in the garage for 20 minutes. After that, we stayed far away from the chest, but I couldn't stop thinking about it. What was so important that he'd beat us just for looking? The garage was where Dad kept his tools hanging on the wall like a display. Leather belts arranged by thickness, extension cords wrapped in perfect coils, a wooden paddle he'd made himself, still stained with old brown spots. If we got anything below a B on our report cards, it meant an hour in the garage. If we talked back, the tools came out. And just to make sure we really learned our lesson, he'd spray cleaning solution on the wounds so they'd burn and sizzle while we screamed. Mom would turn up the TV and pretend nothing was happening. One night, Joel spilled juice on Dad's work papers by accident. I watched Dad's eyes go dark as he stood up from the table. Garage. Now, that session was different. Dad used everything on the wall. He told Joel he was going to beat the ADHD out of him. Joel passed out twice, and Dad dumped cold water on him to wake him up so he could keep going. I stood outside the door listening to my little brother beg for mercy while Mom vacuumed the living room. My hands wouldn't stop shaking. I couldn't make myself move. Something inside me broke that night. I got a job at the grocery store and hid money in a sock under my mattress. I researched bus routes and cities where 2 teenage boys could disappear, but I needed more money than minimum wage could give me. That's when I started thinking about the chest again. The opportunity came 6 months later when Dad left for a weekend hunting trip. I shook Joel awake at midnight. "We're leaving tonight." We crept down to the garage with flashlights, and my hands were trembling as I pulled the tarp off the chest. I found a crowbar on the wall and wedged it under the lock. It took 3 tries before the metal snapped. Inside was nothing like I'd imagined. Stacks of $100 bills wrapped in rubber bands. Underneath the money was a black handgun and a box of bullets. And at the very bottom, photographs. I held one up to my flashlight and my stomach lurched. It was Dad as a kid, maybe 7 or 8 years old, with bruises covering his arms and face. Standing behind him was a man who looked like an older, meaner version of my father. His father. I grabbed all the money and stuffed it in my backpack. Joel reached for the gun, but I slapped his hand away. We're not like him. We left the gun exactly where we found it. 3 months later, my aunt tracked us down at the motel where we'd been staying. "He's gone." I gripped the phone harder. "What do you mean gone? He went into the garage 3 nights ago and didn't come out. Your mom heard screaming for hours. Then one loud bang. My legs gave out and I sat down hard on the motel bed. He left a note," she said. 5 words. I failed. I couldn't break the cycle. I didn't cry because I missed him. I cried because I finally understood him. He'd kept those photos his whole life. Evidence of what his father did to him. He knew exactly what he was doing to us, and he couldn't stop himself. The chest wasn't a secret. It was a confession he couldn't make out loud. Joel and I never touched a belt, never raised our voice, never lifted a hand. The cycle broke with us. My daughter finally brought home a boyfriend I didn't want to kill. I'd been striking out with her boyfriends for 6 straight years. Kevin stole $20 from my wallet during Thanksgiving dinner. Brad showed up wasted to my wife's birthday and puked all over our new carpet. Then there was Connor, who called me sir while dealing weed to middle schoolers behind the 7-Eleven. So when my daughter Alyssa said she was bringing home her new college boyfriend for spring break, I braced myself for another disaster. "His name's Alex," she announced. "And he's different, Dad." Right. I'd heard that line line before every single time. Alex rolled up Friday afternoon in a beat-up Honda older than my daughter. He walked to our door with nervous energy and a firm handshake. "Nice to meet you, Mr. Palos," he said, looking me dead in the eye. Most of her exes couldn't manage that much. Still, I'd learned not to trust good first impressions. During dinner, he was polite enough, asked about my work, complimented my wife's enchiladas, helped clear plates without being asked. He kept his phone in his pocket the entire meal. I found myself grudgingly impressed, but experience taught me the charming ones were usually the most dangerous. 2 nights later, I was in the garage at midnight wrestling with my motorcycle's stubborn carburetor. Alex appeared in the doorway looking sheepish. Saw the light and thought you might need help. My dad and I used to work on bikes before he passed. I know engines pretty well. Instead of awkward small talk, he rolled up his sleeves and actually knew what he was doing. We worked in comfortable silence for an hour. He handed me tools before I asked. When we finally got the engine purring, he didn't take credit, just smiled and said it felt good to work with his hands again. Next morning, I found my toolbox organized better than it had been in years, every socket in its place. A note read, "Thanks for letting me help." Reminded me of my old man. I was starting to like this kid, but I was still waiting for the catch. 6 years of losers had trained me too well. On their last day, my wife collapsed in the kitchen making breakfast. 1 second she was flipping pancakes. The next, she hit the floor hard. Looked like a heart attack. Alyssa started screaming. I fumbled with my phone, hands shaking too bad to dial. Alex dropped to his knees beside my wife and started checking her pulse with steady hands. "He's an EMT," Alyssa sobbed. "An EMT. I'd been so busy hunting for red flags I never once asked what he did for work." He kept my wife conscious and calm while we waited for paramedics, talking in that steady voice first responders use. At the hospital, Alex stayed 8 hours even though his flight left that evening. Missed his connection. Paid $400 to rebook. When I tried to reimburse him, he refused. Alyssa needed me here. That's what you do for family. While we waited for test results, he quietly handled everything I was too stressed to think about. Called Alyssa's work, picked up prescriptions, made sure we had food at home, called my wife's sister so I didn't have to repeat the story 10 times. My wife was fine, just exhaustion and low blood sugar. Driving him to the airport the next day, Alex turned to me. "Mr. Palos, I love your daughter. I'd like your permission to propose after graduation." I pulled over and looked at this kid who'd proven himself when it mattered most. After 6 years of losers and letdowns, my daughter finally found a keeper. "You have my blessing," I said. "They're getting married next summer." He already calls me dad. Everyone at our school knew Luis was a drug dealer. He didn't even try to hide it. The cops would pull him over for just existing, and whenever they caught kids with something, they'd instantly search him. But every time they did, they never caught him with anything. Police would show up and rip his locker open, pat him down, and he just laughed at them every time. One time, someone spread a rumor that it was in a locker nobody used, so they cut locks off every single locker. Still, they found nothing. They had literally no idea what to do. Every time they caught them with something, they'd say, "I bought this from Luis." He'd even tell them to. Our principal was furious until he figured it out. Over Christmas break, his son asked for shoes with a secret compartment in them, and it hit him. It immediately clicked. The first day back at school, he immediately called Luis into the office, and the second he walked in, the principal said, "Take off your shoes." Luis's eyes went wide, and our principal stood there. He knew he had them. Now, he had no choice, and took them off. Our principal was literally shaking with excitement, and the second he saw the shoes, his face lit up. He was right. Luis's shoes had hidden compartments in them. He knew he had him, but when he pushed them open, he was confused. They were completely empty, and Luis was laughing his ass off. "What is this? Where are they?" And Luis thought it was so funny. He told him he just got back from vacation. He didn't take any orders yet. We got a call from a woman terrified for her life, saying her ex-husband just broke into her house. She saw he had a gun with him and begged us to hurry. He was in prison after she came forward about being abused by him, but right after he was released, he went to her house looking for revenge. We told her to stay calm and keep the bathroom door locked, and immediately bolted down to the car, adrenaline pumping. But just as we got there, I realized I forgot the keys upstairs. I had to run upstairs to get them, not realizing that it cost us almost an entire minute. We circled the house and kicked in the door. "Police, get your ass on the ground!" My team was moving upstairs, but as we did, when we heard him break the bathroom door down, we all looked at each other and we rushed up. But just before we got to the top, he shot. Everyone flinched and covered their heads. We heard multiple pops, thankfully none of them hitting my team. But when we looked up, my partner was aiming his gun. He was on the floor. I knew there was no time, so I rushed over to the bathroom, praying the woman was alive. But my heart dropped. I looked inside and instantly recognized who it was. She was my daughter's best friend, but one of the bullets had hit her in the chest, and as they told me she didn't make it, I burst out crying. We were only a few seconds late. If I wasn't so careless, she'd still be alive. We were in the middle of a test when I caught a student whispering and pointing into his backpack. But just as I was about to stand up and bust him for cheating, he pulled out something metal and black. This kid was known for causing trouble and harassing multiple girls, one of them being my daughter. And since I was lucky enough to teach her that year, she was sitting right in front of him. I instantly started getting nervous. I didn't have a clear enough view to be sure what it was, but knew I had to get a better look, so I stood up pretending to help one of my students. However, the second I got a closer look, I realized what it was. It was a handgun. My hands started shaking, but as I sat back down, I dialed 911 on my phone, but knew he'd hear me if I even whispered. I knew I couldn't just walk out of the room and leave them in there, so I texted our principal, praying he'd respond. Sweat was dripping onto my desk, and as he held up finger guns at her, I knew I couldn't wait any longer. That's when I got an idea. I looked at that same student and wrote her a note that said, "Ask me to use the bathroom. Go get the principal, get him to check his phone, and leave the school immediately." And when I handed it to her, she could see how terrified I was. But without saying anything, she left the room. It took everything to hold back my tears. But then someone knocked on the door. Our principal walked in the room, and I immediately saw the kid get nervous. The principal walked up and asked him, "Could you come into the hall with me?" And he stood up with one hand still in his backpack. My heart raced as he walked past my daughter, but just before he finally left the room, he stopped. Everyone watched, and I saw him unzip his bag. My heart stopped, but before anyone could do anything, he pulled out the gun and aimed it directly at my daughter. I yelled, "No, don't!" and everyone screamed. I ran towards her, diving in front of her to stop it. I saw police running in behind him, but in slow motion, I saw him pull the trigger. This was it for me. I heard the click and was ready to take a bullet to the spleen, but when I hit the ground, I felt nothing. The police ran in and grabbed him from behind, and when the gun hit the floor, I saw he forgot to take the safety off. The bus driver looked at me through the mirror and said, "Kid, don't get off at your stop today." He reached back with his phone showing my mom's number. I grabbed it and called her. A man with a thick accent answered, telling me to come straight home, but I heard my mom screaming, "Don't come home, run." The bus driver instantly grabbed his radio. "Code red on bus 19. I need police at every stop." He told me to get on the floor. I dropped between the seats. From the floor, I saw us passing my house. A white van was parked in the driveway. 3 men in ski masks stood around it, and one was holding zip ties. My phone buzzed. A photo of my dad tied up in our basement with blood running down his face. Another text saying, "Get off at the next stop or he dies. You have 60 seconds. The bus driver looked at my screen and shook his head. "It's a trap. Don't move." I started sobbing, asking what was happening, and he just said, "My dad isn't who I think he is." 2 more white vans pulled up on both sides of the bus. He reached under his dashboard and pulled out a satellite phone. "Target's been found. Families taken. I need extraction now for the package." He glanced at me. "Yes, the package is secure." The white vans rammed us from both sides. Kids were screaming. He slammed the gas and plowed straight through. He told me my dad had been undercover investigating a trafficking ring for 5 years. Someone leaked his identity this morning. A van slammed into our back bumper, and he yanked the wheel hard left. "They're Russian mafia." A helicopter appeared overhead, and a spotlight hit the bus. His jaw clenched. New plan. He handed me a backpack from under his seat. He pointed at a building with a red door and told me to run straight to it when he stopped driving. I asked about my parents, and he said the photo was fake. My parents were in witness protection already. He slammed the brakes and hit a button. The emergency exit flew open. I ran fast with the backpack bouncing on my back. I heard gunshots, but I kept looking straight. The red door opened before I reached it. A woman in tactical gear pulled me inside. She handed me a phone. I heard my mom, "Baby, we're okay. We're all okay." I dropped to the floor and gasped from relief. 2 months later, I found out my dad had been undercover for 5 years. The bus driver was my shadow guardian, and 27 members of the trafficking ring were arrested. I showed my 4-year-old daughter a magic trick, and her reaction changed how I saw her forever. I sat down with my wife and daughter at a table and placed a candy in each of our hands. I closed my daughter's fist around her candy and told her to squeeze really hard. I told my wife the same. Then I blew on each of our fists, saying, "Now open." My wife still had 1 candy, but now my daughter had 2, and I had none. You see, I had my candy palmed the whole time, and while closing my daughter's fist around her candy, I was able to slip mine in without her noticing. My daughter looked at the candy in my wife's hand and watched her eat it. Then she looked closely at the 2 candies in her hand and the 0 candies in mine. I made a sad face to really sell my disappointment, and that's when something amazing happened. My daughter took her 2nd candy and placed it back in my hand. Daddy had a candy too. She reached over and started physically turning my frown into a smile. "I won't let magic person steal your candy." In the middle of a test, the sprinklers started spraying. Everyone instantly screamed, "Ah!" But I realized it wasn't water spraying on us. Someone yelled, "What is this? What is on us?" We all tried to stand up and run, but everyone was slipping. The alarm blared, and the principal yelled on the speaker, "Everyone needs to get out of the building building immediately. There is an active threat inside. But just before we could get out, our teacher stepped in the way. He said, "Wait, I think I just saw the threat out there." But the hall was empty. "There's nobody out there. Let us out." I tried to grab the handle, but he slapped my hand. "No, nobody's leaving." Everyone was coughing, and that's when I realized I liked the smell. Oh my God, it was gasoline. Half the class rushed over to the windows, but we couldn't just jump out because we were on the 3rd floor. Stacy yelled, "Please, let us out. We have to make a run for it." But he just stood there. He just said, "30 more seconds." Everyone was confused. "What? We need to go. We'll die from the fumes." But he just smiled. 20. "What if a fire starts? We'll all burn." 10 seconds. A girl yelled, "Ah, it's in my eyes. I can't see." It was complete chaos until our teacher reached for the lock. He turned it. The door clicked open and someone walked in. "Thanks for letting me in, Dad." Stacy yelled, "Dad, you have a son!" They both turned around, locking eyes straight onto me. We all started backing up, and when I saw the guy's face, my heart sank. I recognized him. He pointed straight at me and said, You put me in jail for 5 years. Now it's finally time to get revenge." I couldn't believe my eyes. This was the same guy I had called the police on 5 years ago. He had tried to rob my grandma at gunpoint and had been waiting to get me back. We watched him pull something out of his pocket and hold it up, and we saw it was a Bic lighter. Everyone started panicking because one tiny flame, and we'd all immediately burn. I yelled, "No, please, you'll kill us all." He just smiled. He started flicking, and we all yelled, "Stop, please, we'll all die." He flicked over and over, and I knew I had to stop him before it worked. "Please, my grandma was all I had. I didn't mean to make you suffer." And when I said that, I saw our teacher look at me, but he looked upset. We were all crying, and I saw him really looking at his son like he didn't know who he was. Flick, flick. Then finally, it caught a flame. He held it up, but I saw our teacher pick up the fire extinguisher from the wall. I knew there was no way that tiny thing would save us from the fire, but his son said, "This is for what you did, for putting me in prison with those diddlers. Say goodbye." But right before he dropped the lighter, our teacher raised the fire extinguisher, and in one moment, he slammed it down on his son's head hard. His son instantly fell over, and our teacher stood there panting. He was crying. "I'm so sorry. I failed all of you. My son was a monster." The police ran in and grabbed him, and he looked at me one more time with tears in his eyes as they took him out. When they tried to put my brother with Down syndrome in prison, I burst out laughing. We couldn't afford to put my brother in a special program, so he was bullied constantly. He'd always just smile until he learned to middle finger people when they were mean, and when he made everyone laugh at them, they decided they needed to get revenge. He was walking with my mom, and a group of them decided to terrorize him. "What's up, Extra Downy?" They threw basically every chromosome joke at him they could, but when that didn't work, they moved on to my mom. She was pregnant, and they all threw things at her. "Trying again, huh? One monkey baby wasn't enough?" She was begging them, "Please stop, I'm pregnant." But they did not care one bit. She felt him clench her hand harder, and she was so scared, she started tearing up. My brother stayed calm, but the second he saw her starting to cry, he completely lost control. He immediately screamed, sprinting towards them full of rage. They were shocked, and he grabbed one of them, body slamming him onto the ground. The rest of them ran away, trying to get the attention of nearby police. He yelled, "You hurt mama," and he literally wouldn't stop swinging. The police had to grab them and cuff him. When the other kid's face was unrecognizable, they screamed to put him in jail. The judge took one look at him sitting there smiling and let him walk free. And as they screamed, he gave them his signature move. A student made a girl cry in my class, but it was so funny, I let him get away with it. As soon as she walked into my class that year, I immediately knew she was gonna be my problem student. She'd constantly watch TikTok in class and bully others. And when I took her phone, she lied to the principal that I assaulted her. We had a group project, and the entire class, she was bullying a shy kid, calling him a chopped loser, but she had no idea what was coming. I walked up to her and told her to stop, but as soon as I did, she threatened to call her mom and tell her I touched her inappropriately. She said, "It's not my fault he's such a loser. Nobody likes him for a reason." All of the students around her started laughing at him, and I could see his eyes start watering. I knew it was enough. I snapped at her saying, "Hey, you need to shut your mouth. I wouldn't be surprised if he's your boss one day." She stood up, ready to call her mom and get me fired. When the shy kid finally spoke, he cut in between us and said, "No thanks. I don't want to be a pimp when I grow up." My son went to blow out his birthday candles, but his aunt leaned in last second and blew them out for him. She'd been doing this for the last 4 years, never once caring it made my son cry. Not only that, but she'd also come wearing designer dresses and professional makeup to make the day about herself. She said she was too poor to celebrate birthdays as a child, so this was her way of taking back her childhood. So when my son's 10th birthday came around, I had an idea. I brought out the largest cake I'd ever bought. It had 3 layers, weighed 8 pounds, and had the candles already lit and placed. I glanced over at her face and saw what she was planning. We sang happy birthday, and my son went to blow the candles out. That's when she leaned in like always and blew hard. But what she didn't know was that I'd hidden springs inside the cake. Springs that were held down by temperature-sensitive latches that only stayed closed when in contact with heat. So as long as the candles were lit, the cake stayed together. But when she blew them out, the heat went away and the latches opened. The springs released, launching the entire center of the 8-pound cake into her face, covering her done-up hair, her professional makeup, and Gucci dress. My son started laughing so hard he was crying, and she ran out in tears. That's when I brought out the second non-booby-trapped cake for my son. My daughter came home crying with an F because her teacher doesn't know what color blood is. The first time I realized something was wrong, Riley came home from school holding out her arm. "Look, Dad, you can see the blue blood in my veins right here." She traced the blue lines under her skin with her finger. I put down my coffee and looked at her. "Actually, sweetheart, that's not true. Blood is always red because of hemoglobin. It's just darker red in your veins." Her face scrunched up, but Mrs. Miller showed us a whole PowerPoint about it. She even had diagrams from a science book. The next morning, I packed my work scrubs in my bag. I'm an ER nurse at Mercy General, and I was working the afternoon shift anyway. I sent Mrs. Miller an email asking if I could do a quick presentation about blood for career day that afternoon. She loved the idea. When I arrived, Mrs. Miller introduced me as Riley's dad who works at the hospital. 28 kids stared up at me from their desks. "I heard you guys learned that blood is blue inside your body," I said. The entire class nodded enthusiastically. Mrs. Miller beamed from her desk in the corner. I pulled out a blood collection tube from my pocket and held it up. "This is what we use to draw blood at the hospital. Notice something. The tube creates a vacuum. No oxygen inside at all." I paused. "When we draw blood with these, it never touches oxygen until we pop the cap off." I showed them photos on my phone of sealed blood tubes. "See? Still red." Mrs. Miller's smile started fading. She shifted in her chair and cleared her throat. A boy raised his hand and pointed to their science textbook. "But our textbook says it's blue." I picked up the book and checked the publication date, 1998. Medicine updates pretty fast. We used to think lots of things that turned out to be wrong. Mrs. Miller suddenly stood up from her desk, her hands gripping the edge. "Well, thank you for that interesting presentation, Mr. Johnson, but we need to move on to math now." I nodded and started packing when a girl in the back raised her hand. "So our textbook is wrong?" The class erupted in whispers. Mrs. Miller's jaw clenched and her voice got tight. "The curriculum says..." "Actually," I interrupted, pulling up the state science standards on my phone. I walked over and turned my phone toward her. "The current curriculum specifically mentions this myth as something to correct." She stared at the screen and her eyes narrowed. Her mouth pressed into a thin line and her nostrils flared. "Can I speak with you in the hallway?" The kids watched as we walked out and the door closed behind us. "Do you have any idea how hard it is when parents undermine my authority?" Her face was red and her voice was sharp. "Now they'll question everything I say." I kept my voice calm. "Isn't that exactly what we want them to do? Question things and learn critical thinking?" She crossed her arms tightly. "I've been teaching for 22 years. I'm not changing my whole curriculum because some nurse thinks he knows better than our textbooks." The next day, I found out Mrs. Miller gave the class a pop quiz. Riley came home crying, her face red and puffy. Her hands were shaking as she handed me a paper with a big red F on it. I took a deep breath and felt my jaw tighten as I looked at the question. What color is blood inside the body? Riley had written red, and Mrs. Miller had marked it wrong. I requested a meeting with Principal Davis and brought printouts of medical textbooks, the state science standards, and Riley's quiz. The principal called in Mrs. Miller and asked her directly, "Is blood blue inside the body?" After a long pause, Mrs. Miller said, "It's what the children understand better." I leaned forward in my chair. "My daughter is crying every morning before school because she's afraid of getting F's for writing down the truth." The next day, the school replaced their science books. Now whenever Riley learns something new at school, she comes home and asks me, "Dad, is this actually true or is it just a Mrs. Miller truth?" At the ice cream truck, the man told me, "Don't mind if this tastes funny." I thought it was weird, but really wanted ice cream. My friends were already eating theirs, and chocolate was dripping down their fingers. "Does yours taste normal?" I said as I turned to my little sister. She just shrugged without saying anything, and her tongue was already stained bright blue as she kept eating like nothing was wrong. So I started eating mine too. It tasted amazing, but seconds later, I started to feel off. The world started spinning. I felt like I was gonna pass out until someone grabbed my shoulder. "Need some water, buddy?" It was the ice cream man. He pulled me towards the ice cream truck, and I saw the water in the back. He told me to go get some, and my mouth was so dry I knew I had to. I walked inside, and he said, "When's your dad coming back?" I just wanted the water, but said, "Probably not for a few minutes." "Why?" He got a weird smile on his face. Then, he grabbed the whole tub of the ice cream he gave me. "Go give some to your friends, then you can all come back for some free water." I thought they'd all be so happy, so I stumbled back out to give it to them. They were all so excited, but just before my sister took a bite, my dad stopped her. "Hey, where'd you get that?" Everyone started eating, and I said, "The nice man in the truck gave it to us for free." My dad was a cop, so instantly looked suspicious. He immediately brought his German Shepherd over to the ice cream, but I said, "Dad, won't Zeus die if he eats chocolate?" He didn't answer. Zeus started smelling the ice cream and instantly started barking. Everyone was scared. He was going crazy, and the ice cream man came running out. "Hey, what are you doing?" Zeus was growling. "I need my ice cream back." But my dad warned him, "Stay right there. What did you put in that ice cream?" But in that second, he ran for it. He tried to grab the tub, but my dad let go of Zeus' collar. Dad instantly grabbed all us kids and covered our eyes, but I could hear Zeus ripping him to shreds. They took the ice cream man to jail, and since I found out what he was planning to do to us, I can never eat ice cream again. My teacher shouted out, "Alex isn't your real name. Tell us what it is." But she doesn't understand. I'm in witness protection. It says here you go by Alex. She looked up at me. But your legal name is different. I felt ice flood my veins. The marshals had set everything up. New city, new school, new name, new life. They told me the school had been briefed. They told me my records were flagged. They told me I was safe. I asked her to please just call me Alex. She shook her head. I use legal names in my classroom. None of this nickname nonsense. If your parents wanted you to be called Alex, they would have named you Alex. My parents were dead, killed by the people I testified against, shot in our driveway while I hid in the closet and listened. That's why I was here. That's why I was Alex. That's why I could never be who I used to be ever again. I tried again. It's really important. I can't explain why, but I need you to trust me. She didn't even look up from her roster. I've been teaching for 22 years. I've heard every excuse. I go by my middle name. My parents call me something different. I'm finding myself. She made air quotes. School is preparation for the real world. In the real world, you use your legal name. A boy in the back row muttered something about it being the first day. Ms. Halverson ignored him. She ran her finger down the attendance sheet until she found my entry. Your real name is... I stood up so fast my chair scraped against the floor. Please, don't. She looked at me like I was being dramatic, like I was another teenager trying to make things difficult. She had no idea. She couldn't have any idea. But she also didn't care enough to wonder why I looked like I was about to throw up. She read it anyway. My full legal name. Benedict Rowe Calder. First, middle, last. I know it's a dumb name, but it's the one connected to a federal case that made national news. The one that got my family killed. The one I was never supposed to hear again as long as I lived. 30 students now knew exactly who I was. The room went silent. A few kids were already reaching for their phones. Any one of them could Google me. Any one of them could post it. Any one of them could tell someone who would tell someone who would tell the people still looking for me. 3 years of hiding, gone in 4 seconds. Ms. Halverson smiled like she'd won something. See, that wasn't so hard. Now, moving on, the classroom door flew open. A man in a dark suit walked in. I'd never seen him before, but I recognized the look. The way he scanned the room. The way his hand stayed near his hip. The way his eyes found me, then found Ms. Halverson, and went cold. He pulled out a badge. U.S. Marshals. Ms. Halverson's face went white. He walked toward her desk with the kind of calm that's more terrifying than yelling. That student is under federal witness protection. The name you just read out loud is sealed by court order. You have potentially compromised an active federal investigation and endangered the life of a protected witness. Her mouth opened. Nothing came out. I didn't know, because you didn't ask. He took the roster from her desk. There's a flag in the system, bright red. Impossible to miss if you'd bothered to look, but you didn't look. You just decided you knew better than the federal government about what name to use for a 16-year-old kid. He turned to me. His voice softened, but his eyes didn't. Get your things. We need to move. Now. I grabbed my backpack. I hadn't even unpacked it yet. I walked toward the door without looking at anyone. A girl in the front row whispered, "I'm sorry," as I passed. I didn't answer. I couldn't. In the hallway, the marshal was already on his phone. "We have a breach. Full relocation protocol. Yes, today. Right now." I followed him to a black SUV parked in the fire lane. A woman I'd never met was in the driver's seat with the engine running. I got in the back. The marshal got in beside me. The car started moving before my door was fully closed. "New documents will be ready by tonight," he said. "New city by tomorrow. New school by Monday." I nodded. I'd done this before. I'd do it again. He looked at me. "I'm sorry. This shouldn't have happened. You can thank your blockhead of a teacher." I gave my class 5 minutes to confess, or they were all getting suspended. I was bluffing. I'd spotted what looked like a mango vape in the hallway trash between periods. Our school cameras hadn't worked in years, and I figured scaring them was the fastest way to find out who it belonged to. I locked the door, slammed my hands on my desk to sell it, and told them the principal already knew what one of them did. My star student knocked over her pumpkin spice latte. "What do you mean suspended?" 4 minutes and 30 seconds. Silence. Then Adam, one of my nerdiest students, shot up so fast his chair crashed to the floor behind him. "Okay, I'll confess. I've been stealing clothes from the lost and found in the staff room when no one's looking and reselling all of it on eBay. I used the money to buy Pokemon cards." Layla screamed. "You've been stealing from lost and found?" Adam whipped around on her. "Shut up, Layla. Your family should be locked up. You're not even enrolled in this school. You're supposed to be at Westbrook, but you won't go there because it's more dangerous." Layla sat down and didn't say another word. None of this was what I was looking for. 3 minutes. That's when Abigail, the quiet girl who'd been in a wheelchair since September, grabbed both armrests and stood up. For the first time, ever. The room gasped so hard it felt like the air got sucked out. "I can't do this anymore. I'm not disabled. I don't have autism. I've been faking it since September because I didn't want to run in PE." Someone shrieked, "You've been in a wheelchair for 4 months. I play soccer 3 times a week outside of school. I just hate the coach here." Adam was shaking now. "We did a fundraiser for you. We raised $800 and gave it to you. Where is it?" Abigail didn't answer that. I was gripping my desk so hard my knuckles hurt because this had gone so far past fast what I expected that I didn't know what to do anymore. 2 minutes. The linebacker in the back row swallowed hard. If we're all confessing, then I guess it's my turn. Remember when Mr. Holloway got fired last year for having fentanyl in his locker? Nobody moved. Nobody breathed. Did you plant that? I whispered. He nodded. He gave me a D on every paper. I just wanted him gone. I didn't think he'd actually get fired. Adam screamed, "You ended a man's career. You're running a black market out of the lost and found." 2 kids pulled out their phones. This needs to be filmed. I'd walked in here looking for a vape, and now I was sitting on theft, enrollment fraud, insurance fraud, and destroying an innocent teacher's career. Then Josh in the corner raised his hand. "I've been living in the ceiling." I stared at him. "The ceiling? My parents think I'm at boarding school. I just come here. Time's up," Mia sobbed. "What else could there possibly be?" I reached into my desk and held up the vape. Dead silence. Every mouth shut. Abigail, still standing next to her empty wheelchair, squinted at it from across the room. "Sir, I don't think that's a vape." I looked down at it, turned it over slowly in my hands, read the small print on the side. It was an inhaler. I stared at it for a long time, then looked up at my class full of criminals and said, "My bad." Nobody laughed. I put the inhaler in my pocket and picked up the phone to call the principal for real this time. My daughter begged me to put Christmas lights up, and even though it was snowy and cold out, I told her I would. I didn't see the ice, and when I climbed up, she passed me the lights and smiled. But right before we were almost finished, the ladder slipped out from underneath me. I fell and hit my head on the concrete hard, and remember the sound of her screaming. Then everything went black. I didn't wake up until I was in the hospital later that day, and felt the worst pain in my neck and back. I tried to feel for the bandages on my head, but strangely, I didn't feel anything. I was really confused, but barely managed to sit up, and noticed I couldn't move my legs. I looked up and saw a nurse walk in the room, and she looked really surprised. 5 more people came in, and all started asking me questions. I was really worried because I still couldn't move my feet no matter how hard I tried. I didn't know what was going on until an hour later when my wife finally got there. I was so happy to see her, and didn't think anything about her in tears. I asked who the girl she was with was because she was also crying, and when she walked closer, I made the most shocking realization of my life. This 13-year-old was my daughter, and they broke the news I was in a coma for almost 9 years. I realized I had missed her entire childhood. I was paralyzed. My wife had remarried. But what hurt the most was when I went home to our house, and I saw those Christmas lights were still up. My friend brought 2 watermelons to school on Monday because he just really loved watermelon, but the principal immediately stopped him and yelled, "What do you plan on doing with this?" My friend said, "Nothing, I just like watermelon," and the principal didn't believe him and made him throw them away. That's when we realized something. Ever since our principal banned senior pranks and said we'd all fail if anyone tried one, he'd been so paranoid that he'd confiscate anything that looked suspicious, even if we did nothing with it. By Tuesday, word had spread, and every senior brought a watermelon. 300 watermelons flooding the hallways. The principal was sprinting between classrooms, and by noon, he made an announcement that all watermelons had to be thrown away immediately. We did. Then Wednesday, we switched it up. We brought buckets, and the principal completely lost it. He was storming through the hallways, grabbing buckets out of people's hands, yelling, "I said no senior pranks," but Friday was the trap. It was 95 degrees outside, and we knew he couldn't resist. Every senior walked in carrying a gallon jug of water. The principal's voice came over the intercom, absolutely furious, saying all water would be confiscated immediately. At lunch, teachers went table to table taking every jug. Phones came out immediately. Everyone posted that our principal was denying us water in 95-degree heat and tagged news stations. Before final bell, 4 news vans pulled up outside. I watched the principal get dragged outside by the reporters as they questioned him. "Why are you denying water in this heat? Are you trying to kill them?" He tried explaining, but it looked so bad that he had to resign on the spot. I found out why the McDonald's ice cream machine is always broken, and it got me fired. My first week there, I kept having to tell customers it was broken. Their faces would drop every single time, especially the kids who just wanted a cone after their happy meal. It had been broken for 2 months according to my coworkers, who just shrugged and said that's how it always was. I used to fix equipment at my uncle's restaurant all the time. Fryers, drink machines, even refrigeration units. So when it was slow on a Tuesday afternoon, I decided to take a look. The manager, Karen, was off that day, and the shift supervisor told me to go for it. The machine wasn't that complicated once I got the panels off. The main issue was a clogged valve and some sensors that needed cleaning. Years of dried milk product had gunked up the works. I spent 3 hours taking it apart and cleaning everything with the approved sanitizer. My coworkers started gathering around. Kaylee, who had been there 5 years, said she'd never seen anyone even try to fix it. Jason started taking bets on whether I'd get it working. Even customers at the counter were watching like I was performing surgery. When I finally hit the power button, the machine hummed to life. All green lights for the first time in months. I ran a test batch, and out came perfect soft serve vanilla. The whole crew erupted. Word spread through the restaurant, and customers who had been turned away came back for ice cream. We sold more cones and McFlurries in 2 hours. hours than the store usually sold in a week. Kids were finally getting their desserts. Employees didn't have to deal with disappointed customers anymore. I felt like a hero. Coworkers kept saying I should get a raise. One older lady bought an extra cone just to thank me. I went home that night proud of myself for taking initiative and solving a problem that had plagued the store for months. The next morning, Karen was waiting for me in the office. She handed me a termination notice before I could even clock in. "You tampered with the ice cream machine." I tried explaining that I fixed it, and customers were happy, and we were selling ice cream again. She pulled out a thick manual and cut me off. Turns out McDonald's doesn't own those Taylor ice cream machines. They lease them with a strict contract that says only certified Taylor technicians can do repairs. By fixing it myself, I violated the lease agreement and potentially voided the warranty. Corporate could fine the franchise owner thousands of dollars. There were liability issues if someone got sick from ice cream made by a machine repaired by a non-certified person. It didn't matter that I'd done everything correctly and the machine was working perfectly. My coworkers tried to defend me. Kaylee told Karen I was just trying to help. Jason pointed out how much money we'd made. Karen wouldn't budge. Rules were rules. She made me work those final 2 weeks, which was awkward for everyone. The ice cream machine kept working perfectly the whole time, which somehow made it worse. Every cone we sold reminded everyone I was getting fired for doing something helpful. On my last day, the crew pooled together and bought me a card and a gift certificate to Burger King as a joke. Except it wasn't really a joke because I actually applied at the Burger King down the street. During my interview, I told the manager why I'd been let go from McDonald's. He laughed so hard he almost fell out of his chair. I got the job. Time to stop working for a clown and start working for a king. When my daughter rushed out to catch the bus in the morning, she accidentally left her iPad on the couch. But the second I saw it, she had ChatGPT open. Why would a 9-year-old be using AI? But then I read what it said on the screen. The app replied, "I can't provide detailed instructions on how to make a bomb." I couldn't believe what I was seeing and instantly started scrolling. She was actually typing this. "How do I make a bomb that everyone at school will love? How can I sneak a bomb to school?" I felt like I couldn't breathe. I thought her backpack did feel heavy this morning, so I ran to her room and threw open the door. She had baking soda, citric acid, and I was horrified. I called her school. "Hello? Have you seen my daughter? Has she been acting strange today?" She could hear the panic in my voice. "Well, actually, yes. She kept talking about having something big to show all of her friends today. She brought her backpack outside and wouldn't let anyone touch it. Said she had a surprise for them. But the second I told her about what I saw, she gasped. Oh my God, our school got an anonymous threat a month ago." She started calling the police, and I knew I had to get there fast. I bolted to my car, but the second I pulled into the parking lot, there were police cars, SWAT cars, and I saw them in the playground surrounding my daughter. She was holding her backpack with all her friends around, all of them crying because they were so scared. They yelled, "Drop the bag and step away." And when I tried to get closer, she finally saw me. She screamed, "Daddy," and tried to run to me, but an officer grabbed her arm. "Sir, stay back. That's my daughter. She's 9 years old." They slammed me to the ground. "No, please. She's just a kid." But when I looked back up, they were grabbing her. The officer grabbed the backpack and looked terrified as started unzipping it. All of the police officers ducked, ready to see him explode. But when he opened it, a bunch of glitter fell out. "Wait, what? Honey, did you put a bomb in your bag?" "Yeah, I spent all night making it." And when I looked back, it hit me. She meant bath bombs. When my parents wanted to leave me home alone for the first time, I begged them to stay. I was only 9, but Dad just gave me an axe and told me I could use it if anyone broke in. He thought it was hilarious, but I was terrified. And 2 minutes after they left, I heard something. I could hear something ripping, but I told myself it was nothing. I was fine. I had to be fine. I was definitely not fine. I heard the back door smash and knew someone was in my house. I was praying it was my dad pranking me, but when I peeked around the corner, I saw him. Someone was robbing my house. I didn't have a phone downstairs, and I literally started panicking. I had no idea what to do. I couldn't just wait for him to come downstairs. But then I saw it. I didn't have time to think, so I moved. I carried the heavy thing up the stairs, and when I saw him, he was taking my PS5. Now I knew this was serious. He had his back turned to me, so I creeped up to him as slowly as I could, but then I noticed the gun. If he saw me, he'd shoot me. I was about to swing, but thought, wait, if I kill him, will I go to juvie? But then he started turning. He heard me, and I watched him start to look behind him. And in that moment, I screamed as loud as I could and just threw the axe at him. It smashed into the TV next to him. He instantly gasped and grabbed his chest and could barely stand up. I scared him so bad he started hyperventilating, and I could tell he was having a heart attack, so I stole my phone back and called 911. I think that was his last break-in. A bald man sat down at my barbershop, and I thought he was pranking me. His bald wife was in a wheelchair with him, but when I asked him what he was doing, I realized this wasn't a prank at all. He asked me to lean down, and his story completely broke my heart. He told me a few years ago his wife started acting strange, and they soon found out she had a brain tumor. However, by the time they caught it, the damage was already done. She was only 28 and started slowly losing her memory. She had now forgotten who he was and had lost her hair from the treatment. He had just shaved his head to support her, but as soon as she heard the hair clipper, it was like something sparked in her brain, and it was almost like she recognized him. He asked if I could just pretend to cut his hair, even if it had the slightest chance to bring her back for just a second. I told him, of course, and got one of our spare wigs from the back. I helped wheel her over, and it seemed like she genuinely didn't know where she was. I turned on the hair clipper, and we both waited for something to happen. She just sat there looking at the floor, but the second I started cutting the wig, I watched magic happen. Her eyes immediately shot open, and she started to look around. Then, she looked up at her husband for a few seconds. I knew there was something happening. Then, she quietly whispered his name. We both started tearing up. She kept repeating his name a few times and asked if he was getting his hair cut. He burst out crying because this was the first time she remembered him in years. She went back to being tired, but weeks later he came back and tried to give me $5,000. He told me she passed away that morning, but because of me, he got to feel her presence one last time before she passed. I told him to keep it, but the next morning, I found it on my chair. I woke up at 2 a.m. to the sound of the married couple in my neighboring apartment yelling. I heard the woman screeching, "Stop!" I thought about calling the police, but right as I picked up my phone, my doorbell rang. I knew I didn't have time to answer the door. She was in danger, but they were banging now. I opened it and saw her. She immediately came inside, limping, and I knew what he did. I told her to go hide in my bathroom, but it wasn't over. Her husband noticed the red trail leading to my apartment and started banging on the door. I told him the police were coming, but the second I did, I heard him back up. He started charging into the door and eventually knocked it off his hinges, and I watched as the entire thing broke down. What he didn't know was what sport I played my entire life. So as soon as he broke in, I was ready. He charged at me, and I swung. He collapsed, and I told him to get out. I didn't want to hurt him, but when I saw him reaching for something, my heart started racing. I saw him reach into his pocket, and just as he pulled out that revolver, I swung again. It was ruled as self-defense. I got put under anesthesia, but I was awake the whole time and heard something I shouldn't have. I felt the needle go into me, but after my body went limp, I was still wide awake. Then the nurse asked the doctor how much my life insurance policy was worth. He took out a sheet of paper and said, "It depends how he dies." Everyone turned to face me as they could hear my monitor beating faster. The nurse said I was probably just dreaming. Dr. Carpenter told her to increase the sedative. I focused everything on trying to move my left hand. Nothing. I tried again. Nothing. I could hear them prepping the syringe. My finger twitched, once, barely visible. That's when I heard my wife's voice in the room. "I think he's awake," she whispered like she was horrified. My whole hand lifted off the table. The nurse said that wasn't possible. My wife gasped, "This can't be happening. I already put a deposit on a new house." I opened my eyes. Dr. Carpenter was standing over me with the syringe filled with venom. I couldn't speak, but I could move my arm. I pointed at the security camera on the ceiling, the one connected to the hospital's cloud server, the one they forgot about. My wife looked up just as the door burst open. The hospital had been monitoring the surgical feed remotely. They heard everything. They arrested her in front of everyone, and she resisted so much that they had to sedate her. My gym teacher kept dying and coming back to life. We were in gym class when he collapsed for the first time. In seconds, he was throwing up, and when he was done, he lay completely still on the floor. My dad's an EMT, so I knew how to check his pulse and his breath. He was clinically dead. Suddenly, the emo kid of our class shoved me out of the way. He huddled around the gym teacher, and none of us could see what he was doing. But after a few seconds, our gym teacher stood up like nothing happened. "Sorry guys, I've just been feeling sleepy today," he exclaimed before blowing his whistle to get us to do more push-ups. None of us knew what was going on, and we were all too scared to ask. But the next day, it happened again, and the week after that. Every time, the emo kid was the one to save him. It made no sense, and the school refused to acknowledge what was going on. Rumors started spreading that the emo kid was the one causing it. Turns out he was dating the gym teacher's daughter before she took her own life, and people were saying that he blamed her dad for what happened. I started paying closer attention to the emo kid after that. He carried a black duffel bag everywhere and never let anyone touch it. After school, once I saw the gym teacher shoving the emo kid against a locker. "Stop doing this to me, or I will have you expelled." The emo kid just stood there. I honestly thought he was being blackmailed, and I was ready to report him. But on Tuesday, everything changed. We were in gym class, same as always, when the gym teacher collapsed. But this time, the emo kid wasn't there. I tried to save him like my dad taught me, but it didn't work. The paramedics showed up and tried to bring him back to life, but they ended up declaring him as dead. A week later, the emo kid finally told us what happened in the school group chat. Turns out, the gym teacher was trying to stop his own heart on purpose so he could visit his dead daughter who ended her life. And the emo kid was the only one who knew what he was doing, and he had a special syringe with a remedy that brought him back to life every time. Except that day, the emo kid was too sick to come to school, and the gym teacher ended his life. I was in the women's restroom spray painting "Gary sucks" across the wall in big sloppy red letters. Then I dropped the can on the floor and walked out with my hands in my pockets. 20 minutes later, my desk phone rang, and my boss Gary's voice came through. "Come to my office," and I would hurry up if I were you. I smirked and took my sweet time walking over. When I opened the door, there was a cop sitting right next to Gary's desk. I sat down across from them, still smiling. "So what's going on?" Gary leaned forward. "You went into the women's restroom and spray painted my name on the wall." I nodded calmly as he pointed at the officer next to me and told me he's here to walk me out of this building in handcuffs for committing 2 crimes. "How'd you know it was me?" I asked. He said a woman saw me coming out of the restroom and reported it. My eyebrows scrunched together. "That's weird because I checked every stall and they were all empty, and the whole floor was in the 2 o'clock meeting." Gary shook his head. "There's a lot of people in this building. You can't account for everyone. Someone saw you." I sat up straight. "Yeah, you saw me. On your illegal cameras in the women's bathroom." Gary's eyes went wide. Then he stuttered out something about not knowing what I was talking about and how that was a ridiculous accusation. The officer looked between us, not knowing who to believe. I walked right past Gary's desk to the cabinet behind him and swung it open. There were 4 small screens showing 4 different bathroom feeds, all recording. On the second screen, 2 women were washing their hands right now. I turned around and looked at Gary. Yeah, Gary really does suck. Gary stood up slowly and asked the officer if they could keep this between them. The officer cuffed him instead. "When my mom found out she was pregnant with me, my dad suddenly disappeared while she was sleeping that night. He left her with all the bills to pay and now a child to take care of by herself in New York. She was really stressed and as a last resort, applied for a random job downtown. This would have made her a lot of money, and when they asked her for an interview, she knew this was literally her only chance. She went to bed early, but for some reason, the power went out in our building that night. She woke up really late the next morning and started trying to rush to the train station. She sprinted down there while pregnant and literally missed the train by a few seconds. She panicked and called to ask if she could come later, but they just told her if she couldn't show up on time, they'd never hire a lazy slob like her. She was so stressed out, she just went home and cried before falling asleep. But 4 hours later, she woke up to someone pounding on her door and opened it to see my aunt crying her eyes out. She instantly hugged Mom and was so worried because she wasn't answering her phone. "I thought you were dead." Since the power went out in our building that morning, my mom was late for her interview that day, and she wasn't in the tower when the planes hit. The girl's mother woke her and her brother up at 5 in the morning, yelling at them because someone ate the candy in her room. Her and her brother looked at each other confused because neither one of them ate the candy, but the mom called them liars and made them stand in a corner until she got an answer. For 3 hours, neither one said anything, which only made their mom more furious. So she went to the kitchen, got a tub of salt and 2 glasses of water, making the 2 of them each drink a glass until they vomited all the candy. Both the girl and her brother drank the water, and they both puked because the salt water burned them. Even when the mom looked through the vomit with a stick, there was still no evidence that either one ate the candy. But the mom wouldn't stop there. She took the girl's bed and dragged it through the house, scraping the floor, to throw it outside. She said, "If no one will admit it, then you both are sleeping outside." Just as she got the bed to the door, their father came home from the night shift. When he asked what was going on, the mom told him they were raising thieves, but the father fully admitted that he was the one who ate the candy. When the mom realized this, she knew she was getting divorced soon. After 5 years of negative pregnancy tests, my wife and I adopted a 9-year-old boy named Lucas. He was small for his age and said, "Thank you," after every single thing. My wife said we needed to make him feel welcomed, so we gave him his own room, went shopping to decorate it, and had him join movie nights. But all his decorations stayed in the bags. He sat far from us on the couch, and he'd be silent for hours. So I started dragging him along on errands just to get him talking. Our first stop was grocery shopping. I told Lucas he could pick a few things he liked, but he stared at me like I had 2 heads. I told him again, and he ran off. I thought he'd come back with candy and chips. Instead, he loaded the cart with tissue boxes. I asked him, "Why so many tissues?" and he shrugged. He asked me to bring the cart to the tissue aisle so he could grab more boxes. I crouched down and asked him, "Hey buddy, why so many tissues?" He froze, then shrugged and said, "Expensive tissues are much better." I almost let it go. Then he mumbled something about them being sweet. "What?" Lucas kept looking at the floor and fidgeting with his hands. I told him nothing bad was going to happen if he answered my question. "I used to eat them when we didn't have food at the orphanage. The expensive ones taste sweet." My heart stopped. I told him he would never have to do that again. "I'm going to feed you so much real food, you're gonna get sick of it." Lucas looked at me with his big puppy brown eyes. "Is that true?" I hugged him right there and repeated that it was true. "Okay, but can I still get 1 box for when I miss it?" I nodded. To this this day, that tissue box sits on a shelf in his room, unopened. I was walking through my neighborhood when I saw my crush's house was on fire. I froze. When I was 9, a house fire killed my dad and left me with a scar stretching across my entire back. I barely remember his face, just his hands pulling me out before the roof collapsed on him. I stared at the flames and every part of me said, turn away, but she was inside. My body moved on its own, and I sprinted in without thinking. Smoke was everywhere, and the heat hit my back and burned my scar. I ran through the living room, but nobody was there. Then I heard a scream from upstairs, a scream I'd recognize anywhere. I took the stairs 3 at a time. A giant wooden beam was blocking the door the scream was coming from. It burned and blistered my hands, but I shoved it aside. I found her curled on the floor, screaming, crying, and clutching a photo frame against her chest. I'm here, Caitlin, I yelled. I've got you. I scooped her up. She held on to me with one arm, holding the photo frame against her chest in the other. Hold with both, or else I might drop you, I told her. But she shook her head. It's my dad. It's all I have of him. I held her even tighter. I'd lost my dad too. I carried her down the stairs. She trembled the whole way and kept calling me her hero. We ran out the front door. The second her feet touched the ground, she grabbed my face and kissed me. I love you. I've loved you for so long. You're my hero. It was the exact thing I'd been dreaming about for years. But then out the corner of my eye, I saw the photo frame she'd been holding, and my stomach turned. I pulled away. She asked what was wrong, but I felt too sick to speak, because the photo she was holding wasn't just any photo. It showed the man she'd called her dad, hoisting a little girl onto his shoulders. They were standing in front of the same house that was still burning behind me, but that's not what made me sick. It was the man's hands. They were the same hands that pulled me out of my fire 8 years ago. It hit me. My dad had a second family. I looked back at my crush, into her eyes, and realized the girl I'd spent years chasing, had just saved from a burning building, and had just passionately kissed, was my half-sister. They called me Dead Boy because I smiled when I bled. Before the pit, I was the most boring person at my high school. Not shy, not awkward, just empty. Teachers forgot my answers before I finished talking. Girls looked through me like I was made of glass. I ate lunch alone for 2.5 years, and not a single person ever asked to sit with me. I wasn't sad about it. That was the scary part. I felt nothing about anything. I didn't want friends. I didn't want hobbies. I wanted to feel something. Anything. Even if it was pain. That's the headspace I was in when I found out about the pit. Underground fights every Friday behind the old Walmart. No refs. No rules. Just 2 kids beating each other while rich kids bet their parents money. I went to watch. I left with a split lip and $300. And for the first time in my life, I felt alive. My first opponent was a kid named Darius. Won 6 fights in a row. Biceps the size of my head. The organizer Bruce looked at me like I was already dead. You sure? Darius doesn't stop when you tap. Good. The fight started, and he hit me so hard my vision went white. I hit the ground, tasted concrete and blood. The crowd was laughing, but I got up. He hit me again. I got up again. By the 4th time, nobody was laughing. Darius was breathing hard. I was smiling with blood in my teeth. You done? I asked. He hesitated. That's when I learned the secret. Fighting isn't about being stronger. It's about wanting it more. And nobody wanted it more than someone who had nothing else. I caught him with a right hook while he was catching his breath. Bruce had to pull me off. Word spread fast. The kid who wouldn't stay down. The kid who smiled when he bled. Dead Boy. By week 12, I was 12-0. Kids from other schools came just to watch. Then Victor showed up. A legend. Graduated 2 years ago. Undefeated at 14-0 when he left. Rumor was he put someone in a coma once. Rumor was he came back specifically because of me. Because I was about to break his record. Bruce hyped it for weeks. $2 grand to the winner. Biggest pot in pit history. The night of the fight, I couldn't even get close to the warehouse. Cars everywhere. Older guys with face tattoos. Girls filming for their Finstas. Victor was already in the circle when I got there. Shirtless. Covered in tattoos. Looking at me like I was a bug. You're the one who smiles. Yeah. Let's see if you're still smiling when I'm done. First 2 minutes he destroyed me. Professional level combos. I went down 3 times. Crowd got quiet. Bruce stopped taking bets. But I kept getting up. Every single time. And every time I did, Victor's face changed. Confusion. Frustration. Then fear. Why won't you stay down? I spit blood onto the concrete. Because I don't know how. He charged at me sloppy and angry. Angry fighters make mistakes. He threw a wild right hook. I slipped it. Countered with everything I had. Caught him right on the jaw. Then I didn't stop until Bruce pulled me off. Victor wasn't moving. Then he groaned and looked up at me with pure hate. Rematch. No, I said. I'm retired. The crowd erupted. Bruce handed me $2,000 cash. Kids were chanting Dead Boy. I walked out of that warehouse a legend and straight into flashing lights. Cops everywhere. Undercover had been watching for weeks. Bruce got arrested. I told the detective I just came to watch. He looked at my bloody face and said, "Get out of here, kid." I walked home with $2,000 in my waistband. Senior year, I went back to being nobody. We had a gang that was terrorizing our school for years. They'd bully kids, harass girls, and all the teachers were terrified. But one day, they picked on this kid Brian from the school play. He shoved him, but when Brian turned around, he snapped. He hit him hard twice, completely knocking him out. Everyone was stunned, but applauded. The teachers pretended pretended like they didn't see, but this was only the beginning. The gang was gonna come for him. They stalked him, and everyone knew what was coming. Soon the next toughest dude in the gang started a fight with him, but Brian acted like he didn't want to fight. He tried to walk away, but when the lowlife slapped him, it was on. Again, Brian squared up, and in 2 punches took him down before they could break up the fight. The entire cafeteria was silent. The guards ran over, but even they were stunned. But again, the school did nothing about it. Brian had now taken out 2 of the 3 toughest guys in the gang. The rest of them were just followers who wouldn't actually do anything. Everyone knew the leader, Jack, would come for him now. We were walking to class when I heard Jack yell for him, and they just stared each other down. Brian knew it was coming. Everyone was watching in fear of what was gonna happen. He might have brought a weapon, maybe worse. But then Brian cracked his knuckles. They ran at each other, and Jack hit him a few times and ended up knocking him down. He cocked his first back, and everyone flinched as we thought Brian was done. But then, just as Jack went in for the knockout, Brian turned around and swung the cleanest uppercut I've ever seen in my life. It was so solid it knocked Jack straight back to the ground, and when he tried to get back up, he fell over again. Everyone just stood there, and out of nowhere, they all started cheering. The kid from the school play took down the entire gang. It was beautiful. I was looking out the window on Christmas Day when my sister got on her knees behind me, hands clawing at her throat, and there was blood on her lips. I saw she'd swallowed a coin, and I shoved my fingers down her throat trying to get it out. That's when Mom grabbed my arm with an extremely strong grip and said, "Stop it." My sister went limp for a second, and I thought she was gone, but then she gasped. I sprinted up the stairs to get my phone and call the ambulance, and had just made it to my bedroom door when my dad stepped in front of the doorway and blocked me. I stumbled, but caught myself and ran back to my sister. I got my fingers in her mouth again, reached for the coin, almost had it. Then my mom came out of nowhere and her elbow slammed into my arm. I felt the coin slip deeper. My sister's breathing turned into this horrible wet rattling sound. I was crying now. "Please, please just help me. Your daughter is going to die." My dad grabbed me by the shoulders and dragged me away from my sister. My sister wasn't breathing anymore. I started CPR, screaming her name, pounding on her little chest. It was only when she went completely still that my mom finally called 911, and as soon as the paramedics arrived, my parents started crying their eyes out, holding each other, performing grief like actors in a movie. Dad told them, "We tried everything. It happened so fast." They pronounced my sister dead at 7:34 a.m. on Christmas morning. I later found out that my parents had planted the coin there because they knew my sister's life insurance policy would pay out $500,000 for an accidental death. I kneeled on broken glass to apologize for dropping a cup. Elena screamed. She grabbed my arms and yanked me to my feet, blood already beading on my knees from the shards. Her son Kaloy dropped his fork and stared at me. "Dude, it's a mug. Why are you on the floor?" I couldn't speak, couldn't breathe, couldn't do anything but shake. Elena's voice went soft. "Sweetheart, what did you think was going to happen? 3 hours earlier, Kaloy had invited me over after school. I almost said no. The night before, I forgot to take out the trash. My mom found me in my room at 6:01. She didn't yell. She never yelled. She just grabbed my arm and walked me to the kitchen. Uncooked rice scattered across the cold tile. "Kneel," I dropped, and the grains dug into my kneecaps like tiny needles. She set the microwave timer for 20 minutes. "If you shift, I restart it." I didn't shift. I learned not to shift a long time ago. Tears ran down my face, but I didn't make a sound. When the timer finally beeped, she crouched down and wiped my cheeks with her thumb. This is how a good mother loves her son. The world will be much crueler than me. That was just for forgetting the trash. When I got a B on a test, she made me stand outside in the sun for 3 hours. Doors locked, no water, neighbors walking by, pretending not to see. But Kaloy kept asking me to come over, so I finally said yes. His mom Elena opened the door before we could knock. "You must be Kaloy's friend. Come in, come in." I made lumpia. The house smelled like garlic and fried food, and something sweet baking in the oven, not like cigarette smoke and cheap wine. I didn't know houses could smell like this. A few minutes later, Kaloy tripped over their cat. 2 glasses of juice shattered across the hardwood. I hit the floor before the glass stopped moving, hands scrambling to pick up the shards with my bare fingers, already apologizing. "I'm sorry, I'm so sorry, please don't." But Elena just knelt beside me and took my hands. "Honey, stop, you'll cut yourself." No anger, no timer, no rice. Kaloy laughed and grabbed a mop. "My bad, Mom." She ruffled his hair. "It's just juice, baby." At dinner, I reached for a third lumpia and froze, arm hovering over the plate, waiting for the slap. Elena pushed the whole plate toward me. "Eat! Your skin and bones!" When Kaloy mentioned he got a C in English, I braced for the explosion. Elena just sighed. "We'll find you a tutor. These things happen." I kept waiting for the real version of her to come out. The version that punished. The version that taught lessons with pain. But she just kept smiling, kept offering seconds, kept treating mistakes like they were nothing. That's when I reached for my glass and knocked over her favorite mug. The one Kaloy gave her for Mother's Day. World's okayest mom. It shattered against the tile, and my body took over. I dropped straight to my knees, onto the broken broken pieces. Elena yanked me up and I couldn't stop crying. Not just tears, ugly, heaving sobs that shook my whole body. "Why are you so scared?" she whispered. "What did you think I was going to do to you?" So I told her. The rice, the sun, the locked doors, the timer, all of it. Her face went through something I'd never seen on a grown-up before. Horror, then rage, then something soft and completely shattered. She pulled me into a hug and I felt warm for the first time I could remember. How many times? Too many to count. She held me for a long moment. Then she stood up, walked to the counter, and picked up her phone. "Hello? I need to report child abuse. My sister called me to chat about our grandmother's lasagna recipe. That was our code for I've been kidnapped. When we were kids, our mom was paranoid about abductions. She made us memorize codes in case one of us was ever taken. Grandmother's lasagna meant I'm in danger, but I can't talk freely. Uncle Roy's cabin meant trace this call. Cousin B's wedding meant there's more than one person. The dog got out meant I don't know where I am. We thought she was crazy. Practiced the codes like a joke at the dinner table, never once thinking we'd actually use them. I was at work when my sister Margot called, voice bright and cheerful like nothing was wrong. "Hey, I was just thinking about grandmother's lasagna recipe. Do you remember it?" My blood went cold. Both of our parents were only children. We never had a grandmother. I signaled to my coworker to call 911 and kept my voice calm. "Oh yeah, grandma's lasagna. What made you think of it?" "I was thinking about making it for Uncle Roy. You know how he loves it up at the cabin. Trace this call." I scribbled a note. "They need to trace this now. How's the weather out there?" "Oh, you know, same as always." "Hey, did you hear about Cousin B's wedding? There's more than one person." I heard a man's voice in the background. "Who are you talking to?" "Just my brother catching up." "Put it on speaker." "You're on speaker now. Say hi to my friend." I said hi and kept talking about the fake recipe like my sister wasn't in mortal danger. I heard a second voice, another man. My coworker showed me a note from police. "Keep her talking. Need more time." "Hey, did you ever find that dog? Mom said the dog got out. Do you know where you are?" Margot paused. "No, still looking for him." She didn't know. One of the men said something about wrapping this up. Then Margot said, "Remember that time we went to the place with the red barn? The one off exit 34? We never went anywhere with a red barn." She was telling me where she was. I scribbled exit 34 red barn. Police confirmed there was an abandoned farm off exit 34, 25 minutes away. "Okay, that's enough. Hang up now. Wait, I have to tell him about Mom's birthday party. It's at 3, right? Or was it 4? I looked at my watch. 2:15. She was telling me something was happening at 3. "It's at 3. Don't be late." "Okay, love you." The phone went dead. Police were 20 minutes away. I was 15. I drove faster than I've ever driven in my life, blowing through red lights with my hands shaking on the wheel. I pulled up to the farm at 2:52. White van by a falling down barn. Through a dirty window, I could see my sister in a chair with her hands behind her back. I called 911. They said stay in my car. Units were 3 minutes out, shouting inside the building at 2:56. Police arrived at 2:58. More shouting. Then 2 gunshots. They breached the building. An officer came out and said they had her. She was alive. At the hospital, she grabbed my hand. "I knew you'd come. I just had to stay alive until 3. Our mom passed away 5 years ago. I called her crazy my whole childhood for making us memorize those codes. I don't anymore. My students kept killing every plant in sight, so I brought in one that fights back. My students started destroying every plant at school, and I didn't care until they went after Mrs. Brooks. I found her sobbing in her classroom holding pieces of a broken pot. That plant was the one last thing she had from her mother before she passed away last month. She pulled out a resignation letter and said, "I can't do this anymore. They win." Even though I saw Marcus cut up someone's bonsai tree last week, I couldn't prove it. I'm genetically immune to poison ivy, and I grow it along my back fence to keep neighbor kids out of my yard. That night, I potted 3 poison ivy plants and brought them to school the next morning with a massive red sign. Danger, do not touch poisonous plants. The next morning, Marcus walked into class and walked up to my desk, practically drooling. "Yo, Mr. J, those really poisonous." I explained how the urushiol oil binds to skin cells and causes massive blistering, weeping wounds that won't stop itching. And if you touch it, then touch other sensitive areas, you'll be explaining some very uncomfortable things to the doctor. Marcus laughed and said I was just trying to scare him. I gave the same warning to every single class, and the next day, it happened. I walked in, and 3 leaves were missing, torn right off. "Everyone against the wall," I shouted. "Someone destroyed my property, and I'm searching everyone." I started with the front row, making a big show of checking pockets and bags. "I'm checking everything. Bags, desks, pockets, shoes, everything except your underwear, obviously. I don't want to catch a case." The class laughed. Out of the corner of my eye, I saw Marcus shove something into his pants, but I kept working down the rows, checking every student one at a time. Finally, I got to Marcus. I patted down his pockets, checked his backpack, looked through his desk. Nothing. I stood up and looked him dead in the eye, knowing exactly where he'd hidden them. "You're clear." Marcus leaned back in his chair. His smirk spread across his entire face. The next day, Marcus limped into class, scratching at his arms. His hands were covered in red welts. He couldn't sit still, kept shifting in his seat like he was sitting on fire. I looked up from my desk, leaned in close and whispered, "Yo Marcus, those really are poisonous." His face went white. Our eyes met. He stopped scratching. That's when he realized I'd played him, and the Great Plant Massacre was over. Mrs. Brooks replanted her mother's plant and never turned in that resignation letter. When my parents wanted to leave me home alone for the first time, I begged them to stay. I was only 9, but Dad just gave me an axe and told me I could use it if anyone broke in. He thought it was hilarious, but I was terrified, and 2 minutes after they left, I heard something. I could hear something ripping, but I told myself it was nothing. I was fine. I had to be fine. I was definitely not fine. I heard the back door smash and knew someone was in my house. I was praying it was my dad pranking me, but when I peeked around the corner, I saw him. Someone was robbing my house. I didn't have a phone downstairs, and I literally started panicking. I had no idea what to do. I couldn't just wait for him to come downstairs. But then I saw it. I didn't have time to think, so I moved. I carried the heavy thing up the stairs, and when I saw him, he was taking my PS5. Now I knew this was serious. He had his back turned to me, so I creeped up to him as slowly as I could, but then I noticed the gun. If he saw me, he'd shoot me. I was about to swing, but thought, wait, if I kill him, will I go to juvie? But then he started turning. He heard me, and I watched him start to look behind him, and in that moment, I screamed as loud as I could and just threw the axe at him. It smashed into the TV next to him. He instantly gasped and grabbed his chest and could barely stand up. I scared him so bad he started hyperventilating, and I could tell he was having a heart attack, so I stole my phone back and called 911. I think that was his last break-in. My mom called me sobbing and asked if my daughter was still alive while we were watching Bluey on the couch. "Mom, what are you talking about? Ellie's right next to me. She couldn't stop crying. Turn on the news." Right now, I grabbed the remote and changed the channel, and my whole body went cold. My driver's license photo filled the screen, my full name underneath it, the words Amber Alert in red across the top, and a ticker at the bottom that said, "Child believed to be in danger." My ex never accepted losing custody. 2 years of court battles, and when the judge ruled in my favor, she screamed in the courtroom that had stolen her daughter. The last thing she said to me was, "I will make sure you never see Ellie again." I thought she was just angry. I should have known better. Ellie tugged my sleeve. "Daddy, why is your picture on TV?" I couldn't answer her. I just stared at my own face on the screen while my daughter sat next to me in her unicorn pajamas, safe and happy and covered in goldfish crumbs. I grabbed the remote and switched it back to Bluey before she could read anything. She wasn't kidnapped, not missing, not in danger. My phone kept buzzing with calls I couldn't answer. My sister, my boss numbers. I didn't recognize. I called 911 with shaking hands and told them my name was on the Amber Alert, that it was false, that I had full legal custody, that my daughter was sitting right next to me and had been with me the entire weekend. The dispatcher told me to stay calm and stay inside because officers were already on their way. I hung up and Ellie was watching me with her head tilted. "Daddy, why are you talking so fast? Are you in trouble?" I knelt down and tried to smile. "Some people are coming to visit. Everything's going to be okay." Then I heard the sirens. Ellie ran to the window and pushed the curtain aside and her face lit up. "Daddy, there's police cars. Lots of them. Are they coming to our house?" My chest got tight. I walked to the front door and opened it before they could knock. 4 officers stood on my porch with their hands on their holsters, and one of them had his weapon half drawn. Behind me, Bluey was still playing hands where I can see them. "Step outside slowly." I stepped onto the porch with my hands raised. "The child, where is she?" "Inside watching TV. She's fine. She's been with me the whole, sir. We need to verify that. Do not move." One of the officers walked past me and disappeared into my house while I stood frozen on my own porch with my hands in the air. I could hear Ellie's voice from the living room. "Hi, are you here to visit my daddy?" Then I heard her footsteps coming toward the door. "Daddy, why are you standing like that outside?" She was clutching her stuffed elephant by the ear and squinting at all the flashing lights. "Daddy, why do the police have guns? Did we do something bad?" Every officer on my porch went still. The lead cop looked at her, then down at his phone, then back at her again. She wasn't crying. She wasn't scared. She wasn't being held against her will. She was a 4-year-old in unicorn pajamas, wondering why grown-ups with guns were standing outside her house. "No, sweetheart," I said, "Daddy didn't do anything bad. These nice people just got some wrong information." The cop studied my face for a long moment, then looked back at Ellie. She waved at him. He didn't wave back, but something in his expression softened. "Dispatch, cancel the Amber Alert. Child is safe. False report." He turned to me. "You can put your hands down." Ellie tugged my shirt. "Daddy, can we finish Bluey now?" My ex got arrested 3 days later for filing a false Amber Alert. She's facing up to 2 years. She told me she'd make sure I never saw Ellie again. She was half right. I see Ellie every every day. You'll never see her again. The second our art teacher left the room, our class clown yelled, "Dare me to eat this paint." Everyone immediately told him it was a horrible idea, but he was already holding it above his mouth. Sadie yelled, "Don't do it, you'll get suspended," but he smirked. He wanted to impress all the girls, so he squeezed the entire tube of blue paint into his mouth. Everyone gasped as he swallowed, staring at him with wide eyes. He looked over at the girls, thinking they'd be impressed, but they were horrified. "Oh my God, are you okay?" "Yeah, I feel fine," but his eyes went wide. He immediately grabbed his stomach. Our teacher was nowhere in sight, and he said, "Guys, I don't feel too good." "Yeah, that was poisonous." He looked nervous, and seconds later, he started panicking. "Guys, what do I do?" Our class was freaking out. He had his hands on his head, freaking out. Then out of nowhere, his eyes rolled back. He completely collapsed onto the ground, and everyone screamed. Our art teacher ran back inside, and the first thing she saw was him on the floor unconscious, blue paint around his mouth. She immediately panicked, grabbing him and shaking him awake. "What happened? What did he do?" There was foam on his mouth, and his skin was gray. "Oh my God, what do I do?" Our art teacher was so stressed out, trying to grab her phone from her purse. She dialed 911, but as she brought it up to her ear, she dropped it. She was trying to grab onto the desks, but out of nowhere, she collapsed on the ground next to him. They were both laying there unconscious, and everyone was crying. The paramedics finally burst through the door and were horrified. They immediately started CPR on both of them. "Come on, kid, wake up." But as he pushed on his ribs, we heard him say, "Ow, stop." They all jumped back, confused. He was supposed to be unconscious, but we heard him. The paramedic grabbed him. "What did you do?" And that's when they checked the paint. Non-toxic. He was faking it for attention the whole time. And since our teacher got put into a coma from her heart attack, he got sent to juvie. I pulled into the last free disabled parking spot, and a man started stomping towards me. He started tapping his knuckles on the glass so hard I thought it was going to crack. "Move, I'm disabled. You're clearly not. This spot is for my daughter with PTSD, I said calmly. He leaned down and looked into the back seat. "Why do you have PTSD, little girl? Is it because your mommy is gone?" he asked, mocking her. My daughter curled into a ball and started crying. "She's dead," she squeaked. The man laughed. "I don't blame her. If I was with your ugly dad and had you as a daughter, I would have wanted to die too." Then he noticed her arms and saw her scars. He rolled up his sleeve and slapped his own arm. "Look, I'm self-injuring it too. Where's my parking spot?" I saw his phone filming my daughter having an anxiety attack and slapped it out of his hand. It flew across the pavement. He then literally crawled under the car to find it. Then I heard my daughter laugh. "What are you laughing at?" She pointed over my shoulder. A white SUV was backing into the spot where the man's legs lay. The guy was writhing on the ground. My daughter yelled too. "You wanted to be disabled? You got it, mister." I've been an emergency room doctor for years, but when my nurse ran up to me, I noticed something was off. She told me a girl just came in badly burned, but she told me, "There's something wrong with that woman. Be careful." I immediately rushed to treat her, but when I saw the burn, it didn't look right. Her mom just smiled and said, "I'll be right back, sweetheart. Remember what we talked about. Be brave for the doctor." She was only 3 or 4, so I took her back and gave her some strong painkillers. "Cooking can be dangerous, huh?" She nodded eagerly. "Yeah, the water was really hot when mommy poured it." I froze. "She what?" "Mommy says I'm getting better at the brave game." I couldn't focus and asked, "What's that?" "When she puts the iron on me, I'm supposed to count to 5 without crying." I looked down at her arm, and that's when I realized what it was. The burn wasn't from water, it was an iron. She said if I tell anyone about our practice sessions, baby Sadie will have to play too, but she's too little. I felt the tears rolling down my cheek as she laid there. Mommy says all strong women need to learn pain tolerance. That's what her mother did to make her successful. She was just giggling, and when someone knocked on the door, I flinched. It was her mom. "How's my daughter doing?" "No pasta making for you for a while." I just smiled, but felt my fists clenching. I knew I had to get her away from this monster. I stepped out for a second and immediately pulled out my phone. "Hello? I need an officer at the hospital right now." But I felt someone watching me. I turned around and saw the mom standing right behind me. She heard me. "Is everyone okay?" I was shaking. "Yes, ma'am. Be there in 1 minute." But I knew she heard me. I walked back into the room, pretending everything was fine. "Ma'am, how did you say she got this again?" But she wasn't looking at me the same. She was making pasta, but she looked angry. I told her she had to leave the room, but in that moment, she snapped. She ran over to the girl, grabbing her off the bed. I yelled, "No, stop!" But she took her. The girl screamed as her mom ran out of the room, trying to kidnap her. But the second she ran through the door, someone tackled her. Security guards grabbed her and had been waiting the whole time because my nurse knew something was wrong from the start. A 7-year-old in bloody pajamas pounded on my door, begging me to let him in. I yanked Eric inside and slammed the deadbolt. No shoes, shaking so hard I could hear his teeth chattering. I crouched down and asked what happened. He couldn't even breathe right. "Daddy hurt mommy. There was blood everywhere. Daddy said run, so I ran." I looked through the window and saw Oscar sprinting up my driveway, blood on his shirt, his hands smeared across his face. Eric saw him and screamed, "Don't let him in. Daddy told me if anything bad happens, run here and don't open the door for anyone, not even him." I'd known Oscar Oscar for 3 years. He brought me beer when I moved in, had Eric on his shoulders at every block party. But looking at him covered in blood while his son begged me to keep him out, I double-checked the lock and pulled Eric away from the door. The pounding started immediately. Oscar was hitting my door with both fists. "Let me in! You have to let me in! She's coming!" I yelled back that I was calling 911 and he needed to get away from my house. "You're making a mistake! Please! She's going to be here any second!" Behind me, Eric was sobbing. "He's lying! He always lies! Don't open it!" I grabbed my phone and called 911. "Domestic disturbance. Blood. Child involved. Send someone now." The operator told me to stay inside and stay calm. Police were 4 minutes out. Then everything went quiet. The pounding stopped. Oscar stopped yelling. I heard nothing but Eric crying and my own heartbeat. I moved to the window and Oscar was standing on my porch completely frozen. He was staring at something behind him with a look I'd never seen on another human being. Pure terror. He pressed himself against my door and whispered loud enough for me to hear. "She's here. Oh God, she's here." That's when I saw her. A woman walking across my lawn like she was out for an evening stroll. Blonde hair, nice clothes, pretty smile. She stepped onto my porch and spoke through the glass. "Hi, I'm Rachel, Eric's mom. There's been a misunderstanding tonight. Oscar hurt me and took Eric. I just want my son back. Can you open the door, please?" Every word sounded perfectly sane. I hesitated. Maybe Oscar really was the bad guy here. Then Eric peeked over the couch and saw her. The sound that came out of him wasn't a scream. It was worse. He collapsed to the floor and crawled backward until he hit the wall. He was more scared of this woman than he was of his blood-covered father. Rachel watched her son hide from her. The smile stayed on her face, but her voice went cold. I said open the door. I told her cops were on the way and she needed to step back. The nice lady act disappeared. What was underneath wasn't human. She raised her hand. Kitchen knife. 6 inches of steel covered in dried blood. "Eric is my son. I'm taking him home tonight." She swung at my window before I could move. Glass exploded into my living room. Oscar screamed from outside. "Back door! I'm coming in the back!" He burst through my kitchen just as Rachel climbed through the shattered window. He threw himself between her and Eric. She lunged with the knife. Oscar caught the blade across his forearm. Blood sprayed across my carpet. He didn't flinch, grabbed a chair with his good arm and swung it at her head. "Get Eric out of here now!" I grabbed Eric and ran. Behind me I heard struggling, glass crunching, then sirens. When I came back, Rachel was face down on my floor in handcuffs. Oscar was slumped against the wall, bleeding bad but conscious. He told me Rachel lost custody 2 years ago after she tried to drown Eric. Psychotic break. She got out 6 months back. Tonight she came for him with a knife. My teacher backed away from me like I pulled a knife on her and ran out of the room screaming for help. I don't know what she saw because all I did was open my mouth and cover it with my hand. I was in the front row with my notes open, fighting to stay awake when my body gave out. Ever since my dad died, I've been working warehouse shifts at night so my mom doesn't have to pick up a third job. If I yawned, it's only because my body had nothing left to give. She came back with 2 security guards and pointed at me. That one, he bared his teeth at me. He's like a monkey. They yanked me out of my chair and slammed me face down on the desk. I tried to tell them I was just tired, but they pinned my arms behind my back and cuffed me. "You want to act like an animal, we'll treat you like one." They dragged me down the hallway past every classroom door. Kids pressed against the windows watching. Teachers stepped into the hall and just stared. One of the cops looked at me and said, "You people always make it harder than it has to be." They put me in a chair in the principal's office. One of them read the report out loud. "Ape-like behavior, aggressive posturing." The principal looked at me and said, "You understand we have to treat this as an assault." I told him I yawned. He put his hand up. "We've heard enough." They called my mom. She walked in still wearing her scrubs. She took one look at me in the handcuffs and picked up the incident report. She read it and looked up. "Ape-like behavior. Is that because my son is black?" Nobody said a word. They showed her the classroom footage. She slammed her hands on the desk. "Are you serious? All of this over a yawn?" She took a picture of the report and a picture of my wrists in the handcuffs. "Take the handcuffs off my son right now, or I will sue you and every adult in this building." The handcuffs came off so fast they scraped my wrists. She grabbed my hand and walked me out. In the parking lot, she held my face and said, "You're the strongest kid I know." Then she got back in her car and drove to her next shift because she couldn't afford to miss any more hours. When my best friend ran up to me after school and told me he got invited to a party, I was instantly nervous. In North Korea, if you were caught doing anything illegal, you'd never see your family again. I knew it was a bad idea, but he was begging me to go, saying his crush was gonna be there, and when I saw how excited he was, I caved. We showed up that night, and he went to talk to her. I was nervous because people were drinking, saying things about the government. I knew if police heard, they'd get taken from their families. But not even 5 minutes later, I heard someone crying. I looked up and saw my best friend come back over to me with tears in his eyes. He was trying so hard not to cry in front of everyone, but when I asked him what happened, he just dragged me outside. He told me he tried to talk to her, but she just made fun of him and laughed at his shirt. She said she doesn't date poor people who can't afford nicer clothes, and I told him him we should just leave, but he wouldn't listen. He could see a clothing store down the street, and when he started walking over, I got a terrible feeling. He just stared at a jacket through the window, and I told him he'd be able to afford it one day, and we needed to leave. But before I could say anything else, he bent down and picked up a rock. My heart stopped. I said, "What are you doing?" He didn't answer, and in that moment, he threw it. No! The window shattered, and glass shards cut my arms and face. The alarm started blaring as I screamed, "What are you doing? They're gonna catch us!" But he reached through the broken glass and grabbed the coat. We immediately started running, but heard sirens behind us. I knew we'd get executed if we were caught, and I could feel the sweat dripping off me. We ran back to my house and slammed the door, but we could hear them following us. We both couldn't stop shaking. We thought we had to be safe. There was no way they saw us go into my house. But just as we calmed down, someone knocked on our front door. We both froze, but when I peeked around the corner, I saw my little sister walking over to open it. I yelled, "No!" but it was too late. She turned the lock, and multiple officers instantly shoved the door open, knocking her to the ground. They saw me, covered in cuts from the glass, and grabbed me, throwing me to the ground. They'd beat me with bats, kicked me, and my mom was screaming from down the hall, "Please, stop!" They pulled out their handcuffs, and I felt the cold metal on my wrist. This was it. Being arrested for stealing in North Korea meant the end of your life. I looked over at my mom. I looked at my little sister standing in the corner, frozen, tears running down her face. This was it for me. But just before the cuffs clicked, my friend yelled, "Wait! He didn't do it!" The officers turned to look at him. He was standing there, shaking, barely able to get the words out. "It was me. I did it. He didn't steal anything. I did." He held up the jacket, and the officers looked at each other. Then they dropped me and walked over to him. They grabbed him and took the jacket, and I'll never forget his face as he walked out. He was gone, and I haven't seen him since. I pray he's still out there. After Officer Maddox became my training officer, every cop at the precinct told me, "Don't cross him if you want to keep your badge." But when he smirked at me and said, "I didn't know they started handing badges to monkeys," I almost forgot every warning they gave me. I just clenched my fists and kept my mouth shut though. And I kept my mouth shut every time he did something racist to my people until I couldn't anymore. Our first patrol together, Maddox pulled over a car with 3 black teens for a busted taillight. He dragged the driver out and pinned him down on the trunk with his baton against the kid's neck. He whispered, "You think you're people? Not in my city." The kid started crying, so Maddox pressed harder. I grabbed Maddox's shoulder and he shoved me back against the cruiser. "Touch me again and I'll end your career before it starts." I looked at the kid on the trunk, then down at my badge, and I didn't move. Next week, a homeless black man was sleeping on a bench outside a gas station. Maddox tased him twice before the man even opened his eyes. The man screamed and rolled off the bench while Maddox laughed. I told him to stop, and Maddox got angry. "You want to join him?" He stepped closer. "You got a badge. That makes you different from them. Don't make me change my mind about you." 2 weeks later, dispatch calls in a potential robbery at a liquor store. We arrive, but there's only a black kid in a hoodie standing outside with a bag of chips and a receipt in his hand. Maddox draws his firearm anyway and points it at the kid's face. "What did you steal?" The kid's hands are trembling, but he holds out the receipt. "I paid for it." Maddox slaps it out of his hand. "Your kind can barely afford rent. You think I believe you paid for anything?" Maddox presses the barrel against his forehead. The kid's legs start shaking. "I didn't steal anything. It's always the same with you animals." He puts his finger on the trigger. "Nobody's gonna care about one less black kid." Those words got me to stop thinking about my badge. I grab Maddox's wrist with both hands and yank the firearm away from the kid's face. Maddox swings his elbow into my jaw, but I don't let go. "You're one of them. I knew it," he says. "You're damn right I am," I say, as we hit the pavement. I pin his arm behind his back and cuff him. "You're finished. You'll never work again," he says. But I didn't care because the kid was still standing there, alive. Maddox lost his badge that day.
Have you ever wondered what happens behind the scenes of those helping the homeless videos? I was sitting on a corner with my cardboard sign when a guy pulled up in a white BMW with a camera pointed at my face. He walked towards me, counted out a couple $100 and handed it to me, then pulled out bags of food and water bottles and a blanket. I started crying and hugged him right there, and he patted my back, making sure the camera caught it. He said he wanted to take me somewhere. I hesitated but got in his car with the camera still rolling. We pulled up to a nice hotel and walked into the lobby. He told the receptionist he wanted to book a room for a week for me. She smiled and ran his card and handed me a key. I was holding it like it was made of gold. That's when the camera stopped rolling. His smile dropped immediately. He walked over and reached into my pocket and pulled the couple $100 back out. Then he went to the front desk and told the receptionist to void the payment. She laughed, thinking he was joking. He was dead serious. Told her to cancel it now. I asked him if he really just used me for content. He smirked and said, "Yeah, that's the point." He told the receptionist to void the bill. bill, and she started typing slowly. I told him he filmed me crying and made me hug him on camera. He didn't even look up from reviewing his footage and said it was going to blow up. You said I deserved it. You're homeless. You deserve nothing. The receptionist hovered her mouse over the cancel button. That's when a manager walked out. Older guy, maybe 50s. I heard everything. He walked straight to the guy with the camera and told him he wasn't letting him void the bill. The guy got confused and threatened to sue. The manager didn't flinch. He told him what he was doing was exploitation and a crime, and that if anything he'd be the one getting sued. He said he was homeless once, and nothing makes him angrier than people like him. He told him the room stays on his card, and he has 30 seconds to leave before he calls the cops and upgrades the room. I tried to step in and said I'd just leave, but the manager held his hand up. No, you're staying here. The guy's face went red. He looked around and realized he wasn't winning and stormed out. The manager turned to me and told me I was living here for the week with free breakfast every day. Then he asked if I wanted the open janitor position.
I was working the night shift just driving around when a car sped past me way above the limit. I instantly flicked my lights on, chasing after him. He was swerving everywhere, and I knew for sure he had to be drunk. Pull over right now! After a few minutes, he finally slowed down and pulled over. While I was radioing the traffic stop in, I ran his license plate and saw he had been arrested over 10 times for drinking and driving. I was about to get out, but just before I did, I watched this guy turn his car off and throw his keys into the woods. I was confused, but it got even weirder. He then pulled out a lawn chair, set it up, and cracked open a beer, chugging it right there. I got out and walked up, trying to process what I was seeing. I asked him what he was doing, and he smiled and said, "Just enjoying the evening, officer." Then it hit me. He knew exactly what he was doing. He turned the car off, threw his keys away, and made sure I saw him drink after he was outside the vehicle. There was no way for me to prove he was actually drunk while he was driving, and since he was drinking now, there was no way he could be operating a vehicle. Apparently, this guy had been arrested for drunk driving so much, he became an expert on the laws and knew exactly how to exploit them. He outsmarted me, and he knew it. My son's teacher called him the most disrespectful student she'd ever had. My son is autistic. You can't tell by looking at him, but the moment he opens his mouth, you know something's different. He takes everything literally, says exactly what's on his mind, doesn't understand the invisible social rules everyone else follows. At home, it's fine, but my wife wanted to send him to public school. He's 12 now. He can't stay in our bubble forever, so we enrolled him. On the first day, I tried to explain to his teacher that he was a different kind of special, the kind who can't pick up on social cues. She smiled politely and said every kid is special. She had no idea what was coming. The first 3 weeks went better than I expected. He came home talking about new friends and clubs he wanted to join. Maybe my wife was right. Then I got the call. "Your son has been removed from class. He's serving detention. We need you here immediately." I found him sitting alone in the detention room with a blank expression. His teacher was already waiting with a tight smile. "I've never had a student this disrespectful," she said, her voice calm and measured. "We've been trying to tolerate him, but he argues with teachers and humiliates other students." My hands went cold. What did he do? Last Monday, during a history lecture, he stood up and started arguing with Mr. Bouillard in front of the whole class. My son spoke up from his chair. "I didn't argue with him. He was just wrong. He said Christopher Columbus discovered America. But Columbus never set foot on American soil. He landed in the Caribbean and Central America. If Mr. Bouillard had read the primary sources, he would know this." The teacher's smile didn't waver. "See, this is exactly what I mean. And it doesn't stop there. Yesterday, I overheard him tell a female classmate that her hairstyle was unusual. She was humiliated." "No," my son said calmly. "I said it was different, and that I liked it. I'd never seen braids like that before in person." The teacher tilted her head like she was dealing with a child having a tantrum. "And today, he said something incredibly rude to me directly." My chest tightened. "What was it?" I asked him, "What would your parents say if I called them?" And he said hello, like it was some kind of joke. I stared at her, then at my son, then back at her. Then I started laughing. The teacher's smile finally cracked. "Ma'am, he's not joking. He takes everything literally. You asked what we would say if you called. The answer is hello. That's what you say when you answer the phone." I pulled out my phone and showed her the diagnosis, the therapy records, the doctor's notes. She glanced at the screen for half a second. "Well, if that's true, you should have informed me properly. I've already recommended him for immediate expulsion." My heart sank. 3 weeks. That's all it took. That's when a group of kids appeared in the doorway. The girl with the braids was at the front. "You can't do that. He's a good person." The teacher moved toward them, but more kids crowded in. "He's weird, yeah," one boy said, "but he's not mean, and he's definitely not rude." Another kid jumped in. "He says stuff that sounds off sometimes, but he's the smartest kid in class, and he's actually funny, like unintentionally hilarious." By the time the principal arrived, he'd heard enough. He overruled the expulsion on the spot. I had to look away for a second. My son was surrounded by 12-year-olds who understood him better than most adults ever would. He looked back at me with that same blank expression. "Dad, can we go home now? This has been statistically the most inefficient use of a school day." I laughed and put my arm around him. The girl with the braids waved goodbye. He waved back. "I like your braids," he said again. man. She grinned. I know, you told me yesterday, and the day before that. I was walking my dog at 6 a.m. when I heard screaming. An ex-veteran called Fish was on his knees in his driveway, while his German Shepherd tried to calm him down. Suddenly, our HOA president Karen started sprinting towards him and kicked the dog over. That dog is unregistered and he has to go. Now! Fish looked up at her through tears, his voice breaking. Grizzly has saved my life 6 times, 6 sewer slide attempts. He's the only reason I'm still alive. Karen laughed. All you veterans are the same, always playing victim. That's when she reached into her Prada bag and pulled out a clear white spray bottle. KSH, KSH, KSH. The dog started barking and biting himself. The ex-veteran cried, "What did you do?" She laughed. "Relax, it's just vinegar and water." That's when I heard it. A door slamming, then another, and another. I looked down the street and my heart jumped. Every single house with military decorations had people walking outside. The man in the wheelchair was already rolling down his driveway toward us. The guy with the prosthetic leg was walking over. A woman in an army PT shirt came jogging up the street. Karen was still filming Fish and rolling her eyes, oblivious to what was happening behind her. "Look everyone, look what happens when you don't follow the rules." Someone cleared their throat behind her, loud and deliberate. Karen spun around and froze. The wheelchair guy rolled forward and spoke first. "That's a service dog." Karen rolled her eyes. "Not registered with the HOA. I don't give a damn about your HOA." Turns out the wheelchair guy was Karen's boss's husband. She was fired that same day and ended her life. We heard screaming in the hallway. Then a student asked, "Does anyone smell that?" We all recognized that smell. But then we heard someone scream, "Stop it! Please put it away!" We all rushed to the door. The hallway floor was soaked. The smell hit immediately. Gasoline. Mr. Rodriguez, the janitor, was pouring from a red container onto the lockers, the floor, everything. He had a lighter in his other hand. "Mr. Rodriguez," Mr. Jameson yelled, "put that down. Not until the truth comes out." Rodriguez held the lighter up. "What truth?" Mrs. Patterson asked. "He knows." Rodriguez pointed at Principal Preston, who'd just appeared. "I don't know what you're talking about," Preston said. "Liar." Kids were crying. The whole second floor reeked of gasoline. We were trapped. "Please," a student begged. "Just tell us what you want. I want him to confess." "Confess what?" I asked. "What he did. What he took." Preston was backing toward the stairs. "You're having an episode. Let me get help." "I don't need help. I need the truth." Rodriguez flicked the lighter. Sparks, but no flame. Everyone screamed. I looked at my teachers. Mr. Jameson had gone pale. Mrs. Patterson too. They knew something. "What's going on?" I whispered to Mrs. Patterson. She glanced at Preston, then whispered, "Something happened at a faculty party." "What?" "The Christmas party. Just something happened." "Tell them." Rodriguez screamed at Preston. "Tell them about the party. Nothing happened." "And after? What about after?" Preston's face was red. "This is inappropriate. These kids should know what kind of man you are." I stepped forward. "Principal Preston, what happened?" He wouldn't look at anyone. "There was an incident." "An incident?" Rodriguez laughed bitterly. "That's what you call it? What kind of incident?" I pressed. Preston was sweating. "A personal matter." "Personal? It destroyed everything. It was consensual." That made everyone freeze. Consensual meant something happened with someone. "And then?" Rodriguez prompted. Preston mumbled something. "Louder." "There was a pregnancy." Gasps from students. But Rodriguez was shaking his head. "Keep going. Tell them everything." Preston's wife appeared in the stairwell. "Richard, what's happening?" "Perfect timing," Rodriguez said. "Tell your wife about the pregnancy." Preston looked trapped. "It's not what you think." "Then explain it," I said. Everyone was watching. "The woman, she agreed to help us." "Help how?" his wife asked. "We couldn't have children. She agreed to carry one for us." His wife's face went white. "Our son, you said we adopted." "We did, sort of." "How much?" Rodriguez asked. "Tell them how much you promised." $150,000. The hallway was silent. "Processing." "And after she gave birth?" Rodriguez's voice was deadly quiet. "After you got your perfect baby?" Preston couldn't speak. "March 15th, Rodriguez said. "Remember that date? What did you do?" "I had to protect my family." "From what?" I suddenly understood part of it. "You didn't pay her." "Worse," Rodriguez said. "Tell them what you did instead of paying." Preston was crying now. "She was undocumented." The pieces clicked. "You called ICE." The hallway exploded. Everyone yelling, recording. Preston's wife collapsed against the wall. "You had her deported," Mrs. Patterson screamed. "My wife!" Rodriguez finally screamed. "Elisa, my wife gave you a child and you had her deported." Everything made sense now. Elisa, the cafeteria lady, always kind, extra portions, gone since March. "You got my wife pregnant at your Christmas party, convinced her to give you the baby, then had her deported so you wouldn't have to pay." Preston's wife was sobbing. "Elisa? Our son is Elisa's?" Rodriguez cried. "Your son will never know his real mother." He looked at the lighter, then at us. "This is who runs your school. This is who teaches you about integrity." Rodriguez dropped the lighter. Everyone screamed. It hit the wet floor and went out. No fire, no explosion, just wet. Rodriguez smiled sadly. "It's water, just water with gasoline on my hands." Police arrived, arrested Rodriguez for threats, Preston for immigration fraud. Before they took him away, Rodriguez looked at Preston and said, "I'll be cleaning up this mess. Make sure the rest of you clean yours." I waved to all the kids in the suit while they all said bye to Goofy. I was sweating, feeling like I was about to pass out, but right before I could leave, I heard someone yell at me, "Hey, racist!" I turned around and saw a woman angry. She was staring at me and said, "You ignored my kids because they're black. I'm getting you fired." I looked down and realized that I just didn't see them. It's really hard to see out of the suits, but instead of getting mad, I walked back out. I gave them high fives, took a picture with them, and left. However, after my break, my manager came and grabbed me. "You did what to that woman? She's threatening to call the police." I walked over and saw her, arms crossed. She told him I ignored her kids, and once again called me a racist for doing it. After he assured her I would never do such a thing, she kept going. She was yelling at both of us now, calling us racist monsters, and she was gonna have both of our jobs. I could tell my manager thought it was funny, because when he looked over at me, he gave me a nod, and in that moment, I knew exactly what he meant. I was never supposed to break character, but I made sure nobody was looking. Then, I secretly pulled up my sleeve to show her my own black skin. The look on her face was absolutely priceless. On my first day in county jail, I almost made a joke that ruined my life forever. I was surrounded by prisoners when I joked about unaliving myself. All the prisoners instantly hit me. One of them whispered, "Don't say that. If the officers hear you say that, they'll give you the blue burrito." I asked, "What does that mean?" But everyone ignored my question and pretended not to hear me. I thought I was never going to find out what it was, but then I did. Because there was one mentally challenged kid who treated the warning like a joke. He shouted, "I want to unalive myself," while making himself vomit. Suddenly, the officers surrounded him and made him suffer the wrath of the blue burrito. They locked him in a nearby cell, and the rest of us were held down by the guards as well. Then we were forced to clean up his vomit. To make things worse, the kid was in his cell the entire time, laughing and mocking us. We were laughing at him too, but that's when the officers rolled out the blue burrito, and the mentally challenged kid stopped laughing immediately. We stopped laughing too, because the blue burrito was the scariest thing I had ever seen. It was a 10-foot-long blue foam mat, like something you'd use in gym class, with two 12-foot-long red belts attached at either end. They laid it out on the floor and forced the kid to lie down on it. They pinned his arms to his sides and rolled him up. The two long red belts clipped together at the top and bottom, holding him tighter than my ex-wife. My friends laughed at my rust bucket collection, until two of them got their BMWs repossessed. We were all 22, fresh out of college, financing German cars we couldn't really afford. I was about to do the same thing, had the loan approved for a brand new luxury sedan. But my uncle pulled me aside at a family barbecue and walked me over to his garage. He pulled a tarp off a beat-up muscle car covered in dust. That pile of rust cost me $2,000 in 1995. Sold it last month for $140,000. Your fancy new car will be worth half what you paid the second you drive it off the lot. These old beauties only go up. I canceled my loan and spent the money on 3 rusted-out classics from the 60s. A Camaro that wouldn't start, a Corvette with a blown engine, and a Chevelle that looked like it had been sitting in a field for decades. My parents were mortified when neighbors complained about the junkyard in our driveway. My friends were worse. "Bro, you're never getting a girl driving those rust buckets," one of them said while showing off his new leather seats. "Unless you're into cougars who remember when these things were new." Another one laughed and said, "I looked like I was collecting scrap metal instead of building a future." Every time we hung out, they'd brag about their heated seats and backup cameras while I pulled up in something that barely started. There were nights I sat in that Camaro that wouldn't start and just stared at the steering wheel wondering if my uncle was wrong. But then I'd remember that $140,000 sale and keep grinding. For 4 years, I spent nights and weekends in my uncle's garage learning to weld, rebuild engines, and match factory paint. Burned through 6 shirts learning to weld right. Rebuilt my first engine 3 times before it actually ran. Sliced my hands open more times than I could count. My social life disappeared because everyone thought I was too broke to hang out with, while my friends posted pictures of their leather interiors and complained about $1,400 monthly payments. I was covered in oil trying to bring these rust buckets back to life. Then I started recognizing what collectors actually wanted. My Camaro had the rare big block option. The Corvette had the split rear window that people paid crazy money for. The Chevelle still had the original factory papers that most owners had lost decades ago, and the market was about to explode. Auction prices went insane, and collectors started calling me directly. I sold that first Camaro for 30 times what I paid and used the money to buy a dozen more. Restored them, flipped 3 for enough to open my own warehouse. Last month my phone rang. It was one of the guys who used to roast me hardest. "Hey man, you still in the car business? I got laid off and the bank took my BMW. You know anyone hiring?" A week later, same call from another one. Meanwhile, I was sitting on 26 muscle cars worth more than everything they'd ever owned combined. I drove my restored Camaro to our old hangout spot last weekend. Same friend who said I'd never get a girl driving rust buckets walked over. His jaw actually dropped. He ran his hand along the hood like he was afraid to touch it. "That thing's beautiful. What would you sell it for?" My wife leaned over from the passenger seat. "Don't bother. He's not selling that one." He looked at her, then back at me. Didn't say a word. Same rust bucket that was never gonna get me a girl. Funny how that worked out. My phone rang in my pocket while driving. I answered, "Hello?" But a man said, "I'm taking your child now." "Huh?" I said, "What did you say?" "I take your child from your house. I just bought her." I squeezed my phone. Who was this guy? "Like hell you are. Leave my girl alone." But he hung up. I started sweating, calling my wife, and as soon as she answered, I screamed, "Where is Riley?" At home?" I left her there to go grab groceries, but there's a man fixing our AC right now." My heart stopped, then started again at triple speed. "He just called me and said he's taking her. Call the cops." Oh my god. I knew something was off when I answered the door. I drove as fast as I could, running every red light I could without hurting someone. Every second felt like an hour, knowing my 8-year-old daughter was alone with some creep. My wife called back sobbing that he was a wanted kidnapper. He had a white van. Oh god, why did I leave her alone with him? I took the turn onto our street so fast my tires tires screamed against the pavement, but the van was still there. I got out and ran to the front door. "Hey, where are you?" The cops ran in right behind me with my wife. There was rope on the ground, something that looked like blood, and my heart started racing. My wife started crying, knowing our girl was gone. Then we heard something. Someone was in the kitchen. The cops crept up with their guns drawn. "Hands up!" I looked and saw the repairman eating our food. He jumped up. "Where is my daughter?" He instantly dropped the fork. "Sorry, sir. I didn't know you'd be home." He was backing away. "What did you do?" He pointed at the food. "I just hungry. Long day. No lunch." My wife yelled, "Check his van. She might be in his van." My wife was still sobbing, holding her face while they searched the van, our basement, and they handcuffed him as she screamed, "Where's Riley? How could you do this to my sweet girl?" I hugged her, saying over and over that we'd find her. Then we heard it. "What's going on?" Everyone froze. Riley walked downstairs in her pajamas, yawning. We were shocked. The officers looked at me. "But he told me he was taking her." I pulled out my phone to show the officers the threatening call, but a text popped up. "Oops, sorry, wrong number. My ex burned my car for revenge, but she forgot what was in the trunk." 6 months into my relationship with my girlfriend, I found out she cheated on me with her brother's best friend, and I tried to break up with her. Suddenly, she started hitting herself and screaming, "You're a traitor, and if you leave, I'll tell everyone you hit me." I buried my face in my hands and had no idea what to do. Until that night, when I woke up to someone pounding on my door at 2 a.m. "Your car's on fire." My neighbor was panicking. Outside, my entire car was engulfed in flames. My girlfriend stood across the street, phone out, recording. "That's what traitors get," she shouted, laughing. She was the one who cheated on me. I just stared at her and started smiling because she was about to find out what was in the trunk. I went inside my house and called her family to come over, as well as the police. Within minutes, 2 cruisers pulled up, and my ex-girlfriend looked as confused as ever. The detective stepped forward and arrested her. "Ma'am, you're under arrest for felony destruction of human remains." Her family crowded the doorway. She yelled, "He's setting me up. I didn't destroy any human remains." I spoke clearly so everyone could hear. "Your mother's ashes were in my trunk, Inessa. You burned your own mother." I was in the conference room with Eden when she pointed at the scar on my arm. "You look like you lost a fight with a lawnmower. What happened?" "Just an accident," I said, covering my scar with my hand. Eden pulled her chair closer. "You have to tell me what happened." The next morning, she walked up to my desk and announced, "I got it. You tried to arm wrestle a bear." After a staff meeting, she caught me in the hallway. "New theory. You were an undercover spy whose cover got blown, so you had to knife fight your way out." I laughed and asked her where she was getting these ideas from. Eden crossed her arms. "I'll tell you where I get them if you tell me about that scar." I looked at her amused. "Nice try." She tilted her head and smiled. "You'll tell me one day," and spun to walk away. Her hair swung across my face, and my cheeks got hot. "Circus accident," she said the next day, setting a latte next to my keyboard. I shook my head. "You were a junior lion tamer." "Definitely not." I found myself smiling into my coffee. "At least you're smiling. You always smile when I guess." "No, I don't." Everything changed the day I sliced my arm on a cabinet, and Eden tended to my wound. I couldn't stop looking at her. When she finished, her thumb traced my scar. "This must have hurt so much." She looked up at me with pleading eyes. "What really happened? Please, I need to know." I took a deep breath and told her everything. 15 years ago, I was at a lake when a girl got her leg caught in an old chain link fence underwater. I dove in and pulled at the metal until she came free, but the fence sliced my arm open on the way up. A tear rolled down her cheek. I instinctively reached up and wiped it away. "Hey, it's fine. The girl was okay and I'm clearly alive." Another tear fell. "I need to tell you something." "What is it?" "I'm the girl who almost drowned. My soul left my body." I kept making those guesses because I had to know if it was really you. I looked down at my scar. "Now that you know the truth, what are you going to ask me tomorrow morning?" She smiled through her tears. "If you're free for dinner." I answered her with a kiss, my fingers tangling in her hair. I was up late grading essays when my blood ran cold. I told my class to write about a funny story, and this girl, Kelly, wrote about how her mom had almost killed her. She said her mom woke her and her brothers up one morning, yelling at them because someone ate a candy from her room. All of them denied it, so she made them stand in a corner until someone admitted it. None of them said anything, so their mom stepped it up. She poured salt into water and made all of them drink it until they vomited. She wrote it tasted gross, but she had no choice. I couldn't believe what I was reading and thought she had to have been making it up. 8-year-olds lie all the time. She wrote that whoever ate it would have to sleep outside that night, and when her mom was about to make her drink another cup of the water, her brother yelled, "Wait!" He stepped up and said it was him. Her mom immediately turned red and grabbed him. She was moving his bed outside in the freezing cold, but just as he was, their dad came home. They took one of the candies. They know better. He was confused, and when he saw the bowl, he realized what happened. He told her he was the one who ate it. I almost dropped my mug. This was supposed to be her funny story. This girl was 8, and there was no way she was making this up. I immediately called and woke up our principal, and when I texted her pictures of the essay, she told me she was calling the police. They questioned me and immediately went to their house with CPS. But when they burst down their door, the house was completely empty. Their mom had found a copy of her essay on their computer, and before the police got there, they fled. I don't know where she is now, but I hope she's okay. I was grabbing lunch at this new place downtown when I watched the cook handle raw chicken and then grab a burger bun with the same gloves. I flagged down the waitress. "Hey, your cook isn't changing his gloves between raw meat and the buns." She rolled her eyes. "Sir, we know how to run a restaurant." A few minutes later, the manager came out. He looked me up and down and laughed. "Why don't you stick to your video games and let the adults handle the food, kid?" I told him his cook just cross-contaminated the entire line. He leaned against the counter and raised his voice so the whole place could hear. "I've been in this business 20 years. I was making food before you were born." People were turning to look. He spread his arms out at the packed dining room. "See this? This is what success looks like. Maybe when you grow up and actually own something, you'll understand." He pointed at the door. "And if you don't like how we do things, there's a McDonald's down the street. Might be more your speed." A couple people laughed. He grinned at them. I reached into my back pocket and pulled out my badge. His grin disappeared. "Actually, there's a health department for people like me. Department of Health. You just failed your surprise inspection." The color drained from his face. "Wait, we can fix whatever you need." I didn't know who you were. I shrugged. "The violations don't care who you are." The place was shut down 2 hours later. The same packed dining room, he spread his arms out to watch him lock the front doors. In the middle of an assembly, "Can you hold this?" "Hold what?" But he was already handing me his backpack. But the second I took it, he took off out of the back door. I stood there confused, but immediately noticed how heavy it was. I could hear something ticking and was just about to put it down. My phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. "Look inside." What the hell? Who was watching me? I looked around, but didn't see anyone. Now, I unzipped it, and my heart started racing. I saw the big red timer. I was about to drop it, but then another message. "Don't scream. If you move, we'll set it off. Don't even think about trying to call the police." My legs were shaking. I was standing around all my friends. If this thing was real, we'd all die. I texted back with shaking fingers. "What do you want from me?" "To see you suffer. Enjoy your last 30 seconds alive." 30 seconds? I was only 17. This couldn't be real. I frantically texted back, "Please don't do this. I'll do anything." Other people were starting to look at me, noticing how stressed I was. However, my phone stayed silent. Why weren't they responding? Were they watching me panic? I had two choices: run outside with it and die alone, or leave it and try to save myself while everyone else died. I looked around at all the other students, and I made my choice. In one motion, I grabbed that backpack and sprinted down the aisle. "Bomb! There's a bomb! Everyone get out!" The panic was instant, but there was only 5 seconds. I slammed through the emergency exit. I didn't know where to go. 3 seconds. Then I saw it. The football field was to my right, completely empty. I ran, too. I threw it as hard as I could. It flew through the air, tumbling end over end, landing maybe 40 yards away. I threw myself on the ground, covered my head, and waited. My entire life was flashing before my eyes, knowing there was no way that bag made it far enough to save me. This was it. This was goodbye. But I looked up. I heard screaming and saw the same kid on the ground. They stopped him. A mother called 911 on me for watching kids at the playground, not knowing I controlled her custody fate. I should have left the moment the blonde woman asked if I was going through a divorce. But my 5-year-old niece was having too much fun on the swings. She'd cornered me while the other mothers watched, insisting men only showed up here on weekdays when they had custody battles to win, completely unaware that I was the psychologist who evaluated parents for those exact battles. She started with whispers to the other mothers, pulled her daughter away when my niece tried to play with her, then approached to ask which family I worked for since there was never a man here on weekday afternoons. When I explained I was watching my niece, her mouth tightened, something familiar about her stance. She told me how her ex-husband used to pretend to care about their daughter too, how he'd show up at playgrounds with the same practiced smile I was wearing. That's when I placed her. From the stack of evaluations on my desk, her Thursday appointment circled in red on my calendar. "Some of us take time off for family," I said quietly. She scoffed and turned to the other mothers, announced that divorced fathers always had excuses for why they were lurking around children. She called over a father in an expensive suit on his lunch break, grabbed my elbow to position me beside him, pointed at his pressed shirt, then at my faded one, flicked my sleeve with disgust while explaining that real fathers could afford to dress properly. The other mothers murmured agreement. Her confidence grew with every nod. She stepped closer, close enough that I could smell her coffee breath, loudly asked if I had photos of children on my phone, suggested that's what men like me did. The mothers gasped. I recognized this spiral from her case file, the same paranoid accusations she'd made about her ex-husband. She marched over to a group of playing children, told them to stay away from the scary man by the swings. "If he tries to talk to you, run to your mommies." My niece's new friends backed away from her like she was contagious. She circled me, taking photos from every angle, narrating to the other mothers that predator alert groups needed clear documentation. When my niece ran to me sobbing because the other children wouldn't play with her, the blonde grabbed her arm and yanked her backward off her feet. My niece's small body hit the rubber playground surface hard enough to knock the wind out of her. "Your mommy asked me to take you to a safer person person, sweetie. Your uncle won't be allowed near you anymore. My niece's terrified screams felt like physical blows. She fought against this stranger's grip, reaching desperately for me, small fingers clawing at the air. I forced myself to stay calm. Any movement would be twisted into aggression. But when she started toward the playground exit with my screaming niece, I had to act. Let her go. You're hurting her. Her face lit up with triumph. She released my niece and rushed at me, shoved me back against the fence, pinned me there with her forearm across my throat. He tried to lure a little girl into the bathroom, she said into her phone. No, officer. He's getting aggressive now. Please hurry. The police arrived. The younger officer's expression shifted when he recognized me. Dr. James, what are you doing here? Her grip loosened as he explained to the crowd that I was the family court's chief custody evaluator, the person who wrote recommendations for every contested divorce in the district. I watched the color drain from her face. She stumbled backward, grabbing my arm, stammering about misunderstandings, how being protective proved she was a good mother, exactly what I looked for in evaluations. She kept repeating her case number while trying to help bandage my niece's knee with shaking hands, insisting her vigilance today showed she deserved full custody, the same desperate bargaining I'd heard dozens of times. I'll see you Thursday, I said, buckling my niece into her car seat while she stood frozen. For your evaluation.
I woke up on Christmas morning to the sound of my son crying downstairs. I rushed down, expecting to see him and my husband surrounded by wrapping paper. Instead, my 7-year-old was sitting on his knees completely alone, looking at the Christmas tree in front of him. He was sobbing, and the tree was completely empty, not a single present underneath it. Even stranger, my husband was nowhere to be seen. Not the living room, backyard, even his car was gone. Mommy, why didn't Santa come? Was I bad this year? I froze looking at the sight. Me and my husband had spent all of last night wrapping those presents together at 2 a.m. We took pictures, had a slideshow of our wedding playing, and spent the night talking about how lucky we were. Now all of our hard work was gone, and he was nowhere to be found. There had to be an explanation. I tried to be good, my son cried. I shared my toys. I left out my favorite milk and cookies. Why doesn't Santa love me? I knelt down beside him and held his face. Baby, Santa came. There was just a mix-up. Mommy's going to make some calls and get the presents delivered. I need you to go outside and build the biggest snowman ever so Santa can see it from his sleigh. He wiped his nose. Really? You can get the presents? I gulped, knowing I might be lying. Yes, now go. He put on his snow clothes and ran outside with hope in his eyes. The second the door closed, I let myself cry, but only for a second. I went back upstairs while my son's son played and noticed my husband's closet was empty. Not only that, his wallet was gone. His keys were gone. I went online and saw I was blocked on his phone and every social media account. I realized this wasn't some mix-up. He hadn't been kidnapped by evil elves. He'd actually planned this. I thought about what to do when I remembered the tracker we'd put on his car 6 months ago. I opened the app and his location was live. He hadn't turned it off. 90 minutes away at an address I'd never seen. I went back downstairs. My son was outside finishing his snowman. I told him we had to go on an adventure to get the presents because I found them. His eyes lit up. Like a treasure hunt? Exactly like a treasure hunt. He babbled the entire drive about what he hoped Santa brought him. I smiled and nodded, but my knuckles were white on the steering wheel. We drove past the city, through the countryside, and into a nice suburb I'd never been to. Christmas lights on every house. Then I saw my husband's car parked in a driveway, and my blood went cold. Mommy, is this where the presents are? I could barely speak. Yeah, baby, I think so. We walked up, and I rang the doorbell. A woman answered wearing a Christmas sweater, and my mind went blank. It was my husband's high school sweetheart. My husband appeared behind her, and his face collapsed the second he saw me. I looked past him into the living room, and my stomach dropped. 2 kids were playing with presents. Our presents. The same ones we wrapped last night. On the couch sat the jewelry box I'd bought for myself, and the woman was wearing the earrings I'd saved for months for. My son tugged my hand. Mommy, that boy has the race car I asked for. The woman turned to my husband. Honey, do you know her? I stepped inside. Yes, he does. I'm his wife. This is his son. Those are our presents. Her face drained. Wife? She turned to him. You told me you were divorced. I looked at the 2 kids. Are those his? She shook her head. They're mine from my first marriage. I turned to my husband. You left your real son on Christmas morning to play stepdad to kids that aren't yours. You stole presents from your own child. My son looked up at his father with tears running down his face. Daddy, why did you take my Christmas presents? Am I not good enough for you? My husband couldn't speak. His eyes were watering. I can explain. The woman slapped him and kicked him out. He rang her doorbell for an hour before he gave up and walked away. He got drunk, fell asleep in the snow, and now needs his leg amputated.
My town was so racist, they accidentally made me a millionaire. My dad and I were pretty much the only 2 black people around, so he could barely keep a job. But after he suddenly passed away one night, I got a check in the mail. My dad had been saving to move us somewhere safer and left me $15,000. I couldn't believe the number I was seeing was real. I had no idea what to do with it, so I walked as carefully as I could to the bank. However, the second I walked in, something seemed off. I showed the check to the teller, and as soon as he read it, he called security. I stood there confused, but before I could even react, the cops arrested me yelling that I stole that money. I had to get a lawyer, and after we finished suing that bank, I ended up with $100,000. I thought I was rich, but that was just the start. I immediately bought the nicest car I could find, but not even an hour later, I got pulled over. They already had their hands on their guns when they saw me. He asked, "Where'd you get this, boy?" I was confused. I bought it, but as As soon as I said that, he grabbed me and slammed me against the hood. They threw me in a cell, giving me multiple bruises in the process. And when I told that same lawyer, he burst out laughing, because neither of us will ever work again. When two guys in our class got in a fistfight over Clash Royale, our teacher decided to give everyone assigned seating. I got stuck next to the quiet kid, and on the first day, he put a note on my desk. I opened it and read, "Enjoy your last few minutes alive, loser." I just looked at him weird, and he was just sitting there smiling at me. I tried to ignore it. Then another paper hit my desk. It just said, "Look." And when I did, he was unzipping his backpack. He opened it all the way and reached inside. And when he showed me what he had, I felt my heart start racing. He was holding an actual gun. I instantly started sweating. Nobody had a clue this was going on. And after a few seconds, I could hear him writing another note. It said, "If you scream, I'm shooting you." My sweat started off my forehead. If I screamed and warned everyone, he'd for sure shoot me. But if I ran, I'd be leaving my classmates for dead. I felt like I wanted to cry, and all of a sudden I was getting looks from the people around me. I had to do something, and then it hit me. I could ask to go to the bathroom. I could just walk out calmly, get to the principal's office, and tell them to lock down the school. I took a deep breath and raised my hand. "Ms. Wheeler, can I use the bathroom?" She barely looked up. "No, you can wait. Class is almost over." Oh my God, I literally could not wait. "No, but I really have to go." She just sighed. "Fine, just make it quick." I stood up trying to keep my legs from shaking. But before I could open the door, I heard his voice behind me. "Ms. Wheeler, I really have to go too. May I go as well?" She just shrugged and said, "Okay, make it quick." I walked out, my heart beating out of my chest. I turned around and saw him walking right behind me. I was panicking. I saw the bathroom. I thought maybe I could go in and grab him. Maybe this was a prank. But as I passed the door, I started running. I ran down the hall and had to make it to the principal's office. So as soon as I turned the corner, I yelled, "Gun, he has a gun. Someone help." He was chasing me, and I knew this was about to be the biggest mistake of my life. I was almost there yelling, "Help me, he's gonna shoot." But he was right behind me. I watched him turn and raise his gun, aimed right at me. I yelled, "Please no." And just as he walked towards me, 4 SWAT officers all dove out behind the lockers grabbing him. He pulled the trigger, shooting straight at me. I fell over, and I watched the bullet hit the ground right between my legs as they cuffed him on the ground. They knew his plan the whole time, and I saved my entire school. When my patient woke up from surgery, she started laughing. "I hope my boyfriend doesn't actually kill me today." I looked over at her. "What? What do you mean?" She was under heavy anesthesia, so she couldn't stop giggling. "He told me he was gonna pick me up from surgery, cause then I wouldn't be able to stop him." I couldn't believe what I was hearing. "Honey, stop him from doing what?" She just laughed again, saying, "Oh no, I shouldn't have told you that. He told me not to tell anybody." She kept giggling like it was the funniest thing in the world, but I didn't think it was funny. I was horrified. I remember seeing weird marks on her arms and legs during surgery, but thought she did gymnastics or something. I asked her one more time, "What is he gonna do to you?" But she was so high she just gave me a big smile and said, "I don't know." Whatever it was, I knew I had to report it. So I called 911 and told them everything. I started getting emotional because my daughter was around the same age and always had guys try to creep on her. I told the dispatcher her full name, Katie Harrington, and she told me, "Sir, whatever you do not let that girl out of your sight." "What? Why? Can you see her right now?" But when I peeked back into the recovery room, I almost dropped my phone. Her IV was on the ground spilling everywhere, and her bed was empty. "Sir, is she there?" But I just ran over to look for her. I yelled at the nurse, "Have you seen Katie Harrington?" "Yeah, why? She just left with her boyfriend." "Oh my God, he's gonna hurt her. Why did you let her go?" I grabbed my phone and called the police right back, telling them I lost her and they had to hurry. I knew this kid was planning to do something to her, but now I had no idea where she was. I just sat there crying for what felt like hours, thinking about how my daughter was the same age, how many of her boyfriends tried to take advantage of her. But then the nurse ran up to me. "We need to move. There's an ambulance coming." But I could barely keep it together. I let this poor girl get away, and it was all my fault. "Come on, we need to go now." I put on my mask as my tears soaked through, but as they opened the ambulance, I completely effing froze. They wheeled the bed off, and I saw it was Katie. I instantly yelled, "Give me the update. What happened to her?" But they were pumping her with naloxone. Naloxone is for overdoses, and I knew I couldn't let her down twice. But halfway through trying to get her heart beating again, the operating room's doors burst open. It was Katie's father. "Please, save my baby girl. Please, God." I was doing literally everything I could, but after when I walked back over to him, he saw it in my eyes. I told him everything I heard her say and what her boyfriend did. He looked over at her in that bed, her laying there in a coma, and he said, "I'm killing him. I'm going to murder that kid." The cops were standing right there, and even though it was protocol to report him, I didn't, because I'd do the same if it were my daughter. I never thought I'd see a attempted murder at my school until I got put on lunch duty. Every single day I watched this tiny kid walk up and ask, "Does this have gluten? Is this dairy-free?" But every day the lunch ladies would get annoyed saying, "You'll be fine, kid, just eat it." But I need to know, I could get hurt, and they'd shove a tray at him and move on to the next student. I stood closer the next lunch, but I overheard them saying, "Oh look, here comes Allergy Boy again." They laughed at them. Maybe we should just give him dairy today and see what happens. I couldn't believe what I was hearing, but they smiled while they handed him his food. Then he took his first bite, and not even 20 seconds later, he dropped his fork and started running out of the cafeteria with his hands on his stomach. Everyone watched him and laughed, especially the lunch ladies. Did you see him choking though? This was pure evil. I immediately walked to the principal's office to tell him to fire them, but as soon as I finished telling him what I saw, he goes, "That's a serious accusation. Do you have any proof?" He called them in, and as soon as he asked them, one of them put her hand on her chest and said, "What? We try so hard. It was an honest mistake." The principal turned to me. "See, it's just a misunderstanding. Perhaps you should focus on your own classroom." I left that office furious, but I made a promise to myself. This wasn't happening again. The next day, I positioned myself right next to the lunch line when he walked in. "Hey there, we're so sorry about yesterday, so we made you something completely safe today. We promise." They were performing for the whole cafeteria. We made Thai noodles with our special sauce, totally safe. He thanked them and took his tray, and that's when it hit me. What was he even allergic to? So I quickly walked to the nurse's office to find his folder, and when I looked at it, I felt terrible. He was allergic to almost 25 things. No wonder he was so skinny. But then at the bottom it said, "Fatal, peanuts." Wait a second, they said Thai sauce. Thai sauce had peanuts in it. Then it hit me. They were trying to kill him. I instantly grabbed the EpiPen from the wall and ran to the cafeteria. But when I burst through the cafeteria doors, I saw a crowd of kids standing in a circle around one of the tables. Someone was screaming, "He can't breathe! Somebody help! Where's the EpiPen?" "There's no EpiPen! There isn't one in here!" But I had one. I dropped to my knees beside him and uncapped the pen. His throat had completely closed. I didn't know how long he'd gone without air. I jammed the EpiPen into his thigh and held it there, counting the seconds, but he wasn't breathing. A girl was yelling, "Please save his life," but it should have worked by now. It was too late, and I looked at those lunch ladies. "He told us he wanted it today." They were lying. I snapped, "You killed him! Prove it!" But the girl was pointing to him. "Wait, you killed him, and now he can't expose you." I was about to grab her by the throat until I heard wheezing. I froze and saw him gasp back to life, and since he could now definitely tell the police what they did, they now stand in line for their prison lunch. My brother did unforgivable things to my daughter in the basement at her own birthday party. I was at work when I got a phone call from my wife who was screaming and crying her eyes out. I immediately followed her location to my brother's house, and my wife was loading our daughter onto a stretcher. Our daughter was completely blue and pale and covered in bruises. There was grease all over her hair, and clumps of hair had been torn out. The ambulance wheeled my daughter away, and I immediately ran over to confront my wife. She told me that our daughter had seen my brother cheating, and she threatened to tell someone. So my brother grabbed my daughter's arm and started dragging her into the basement by her hair. And when she struggled, he poured grease all over her to get her to stop. I just smiled and laughed because I was ready to ruin his life 10 times more. That night, I went into his room and replaced his depression medication with sugar pills, and I made sure he woke up that morning to an anonymous text saying he had intercourse with someone who had chlamydia. When he finally made it to work later, I sent everyone in his job a photo I'd found of him cheating on his wife with a homeless person, and a week later, he killed himself. Oh well. When my patient woke up from surgery, she started laughing. "I hope my boyfriend doesn't actually kill me today." I looked over at her. "What? What do you mean?" She was under heavy anesthesia, so she couldn't stop giggling. "He told me he was gonna pick me up from surgery, cause then I wouldn't be able to stop him." I couldn't believe what I was hearing. "Honey, stop him from doing what?" She just laughed again, saying, "Oh no, I shouldn't have told you that. He told me not to tell anybody." She kept giggling like it was the funniest thing in the world, but I didn't think it was funny. I was horrified. I remember seeing weird marks on her arms and legs during surgery, but thought she did gymnastics or something. I asked her one more time, "What is he gonna do to you?" But she was so high she just gave me a big smile and said, "I don't know." Whatever it was, I knew I had to report it. So I called 911 and told them everything. I started getting emotional because my daughter was around the same age and always had guys try to creep on her. I told the dispatcher her full name, Katie Harrington, and she told me, "Sir, whatever you do not let that girl out of your sight." What? Why? Can you see her right now? But when I peeked back into the recovery room, I almost dropped my phone. Her IV was on the ground spilling everywhere, and her bed was empty. "Sir, is she there?" But I just ran over to look for her. I yelled at the nurse, "Have you seen Katie Harrington?" "Yeah, why? She just left with her boyfriend." "Oh my God, he's gonna hurt her. Why did you let her go?" I grabbed my phone and called the police right back, telling them I lost her and they had to hurry. I knew this kid was planning to do something to her, but now I had no idea where she was. I just sat there crying for what felt like hours, thinking about how my daughter was the same age, how many of her boyfriends tried to take advantage of her. But then the nurse ran up to me. "We need to move. There's an ambulance coming." But I could barely keep it together. I let this poor girl get away, and it was all my fault. "Come on, we need to go now." I put on my mask as my tears soaked through, but as they opened the ambulance, I completely effing froze. They wheeled the bed off, and I saw it was Katie. I instantly yelled, "Give me the update. What happened to her?" But they were pumping her with naloxone. Naloxone is for overdoses, and I knew I couldn't let her down twice. But halfway through trying to get her heart beating again, the operating room's doors burst open. It was Katie's father. "Please, save my baby girl. Please, God." I was doing literally everything I could, but after when I walked back over to him, he saw it in my eyes. I told him everything I heard her say and what her boyfriend did. He looked over at her in that bed, her laying there in a coma, and he said, "I'm killing him. I'm going to murder that kid." The cops were standing right there, and even though it was protocol to report him, I didn't, because I'd do the same if it were my daughter. When two guys in our class got in a fistfight over Clash Royale, our teacher decided to give everyone assigned seating. I got stuck next to the quiet kid, and on the first day, he put a note on my desk. I opened it and read, "Enjoy your last few minutes alive, loser." I just looked at him weird, and he was just sitting there smiling at me. I tried to ignore it. Then another paper hit my desk. It just said, "Look." And when I did, he was unzipping his backpack. He opened it all the way and reached inside. And when he showed me what he had, I felt my heart start racing. He was holding an actual gun. I instantly started sweating. Nobody had a clue this was going on. And after a few seconds, I could hear him writing another note. It said, "If you scream, I'm shooting you." My sweat started off my forehead. If I screamed and warned everyone, he'd for sure shoot me. But if I ran, I'd be leaving my classmates for dead. I felt like I wanted to cry, and all of a sudden I was getting looks from the people around me. I had to do something, and then it hit me. I could ask to go to the bathroom. I could just walk out calmly, get to the principal's office, and tell them to lock down the school. I took a deep breath and raised my hand. "Ms. Wheeler, can I use the bathroom?" She barely looked up. "No, you can wait. Class is almost over." Oh my God, I literally could not wait. "No, but I really have to go." She just sighed. "Fine, just make it quick." I stood up trying to keep my legs from shaking, but before I could open the door, I heard his voice behind me. "Ms. Wheeler, I really have to go too. May I go as well?" She just shrugged and said, "Okay, make it quick." I walked out, my heart beating out of my chest. I turned around and saw him walking right behind me. I was panicking. I saw the bathroom. I thought maybe I could go in and grab him. Maybe this was a prank, but as I passed the door, I started running. I ran down the hall and had to make it to the principal's office. So as soon as I turned the corner, I yelled, "Gun, he has a gun. Someone help." He was chasing me, and I knew this was about to be the biggest mistake of my life. I was almost there yelling, "Help me, he's gonna shoot." But he was right behind me. I watched him turn and raise his gun, aimed right at me. I yelled, "Please no." And just as he walked towards me, 4 SWAT officers all dove out behind the lockers grabbing him. He pulled the trigger, shooting straight at me. I fell over, and I watched the bullet hit the ground right between my legs as they cuffed him on the ground. They knew his plan the whole time, and I saved my entire school. When I was 12, my mother sat me down and told me she was probably going to die. She had congestive heart failure and didn't know how long she had left. Up to that point, I had been studying really hard and dreaming of being the first person in my family to graduate high school. But that went out the window. While other kids were studying and playing sports, I was learning police schedules so I could drive my mom to appointments without risking being stopped. For 6 years, I watched her get weaker, managing her medicine, helping her walk, and even feeding her. I worked 2 jobs to cover rent as well as her medical bills, barely managing to squeak my way into senior year. The only thing that kept me going was her slim chance of survival. Then one day while in class, I got a call from the hospital. "You need to come now." My mother was supposed to be home. I got in my car and drove over immediately. My mother was alive, but on tubes, and looking very different from the woman I saw this morning. She said she had 3 weeks to live. She also admitted she'd known that she was going to die for a while, and had been playing down her condition for the last few months. When I asked why, she used all her strength to open my elementary school notebook, because graduating high school wasn't just his dream. She pointed at 12-year-old me. Him graduating was my dream too. She closed the book and looked me in the eye. "And if you knew how bad I was, you would have fully neglected your grades." I didn't know what to say. The worst part was she was right. I'd already given up my cap and gown rental money a few months ago just to buy her another bottle of painkillers. I hugged her tight as I could without hurting her, and we cried like that until she fell asleep. That's when I emailed my principal, because even though my graduation was 3 months away, I just learned how much seeing it meant to Mom too, and I'd be damned if I didn't make her last wish come true. It took 7 days of preparation and organizing with the hospital team and hoping she wouldn't leave early. But 168 hours later, my principal and I walked into Mom's hospital room together. He was holding my diploma. The ceremony was happening here. My mother's face lit up with true, authentic joy for the first time in years. She cried. I walked over and hugged her, trying not to cry. But it turns out, Mom wasn't about to make holding back my tears easy. If only I knew what was coming. Right as the ceremony was about to begin, I felt something hit my arm. My mom was whispering into my ear to check the closet. She smiled like she knew something. I walked over and opened the closet and instantly started crying. A cap and gown, just like I dreamed about at 12. I pulled it out and turned to her, and she was crying happy tears. She used her last bit of strength to sit up and stand out of bed. The nurse nearby helped her walk over, and my mom hugged me. She told me she saw me giving up the cap and gown months ago and sold that bottle of pills I got her right back. I put it on, and in my graduation attire, graduated right there in the hospital. My mom clapped the loudest. This prisoner is in solitary confinement, but random love letters keep appearing in his cell. No visitors, no vents or windows. The guards can't figure it out. It all started when I got a job at this prison and became hyperfixated on one inmate in particular. He was here for killing a little girl and was in solitary with 1 year left of his sentence. He wasn't allowed contact with anyone for any reason, but soon after I was hired, letters started appearing in his cell. They were from a girl named Maria and talked all about how she wanted to be with him, that she saw his interview and knows one mistake doesn't make him a monster the world says he is. The letters had details about her life and sometimes even included pictures of Maria. The inmate, being devoid of human contact for 15 years, quickly fell in love, fantasizing about their future, pressing her letters against his chest and using her photos as material at night. In reality, the letters came from me. I worked in the prison laundry department and was in charge of changing inmates' bedding, and every week I'd write these letters and sew them into the hem of his bed sheets for him to find. A week before he was released, I wrote my final letter, ending it with, "On the day of your release, meet me at these coordinates." On the day, he showed up to the secluded park at night with flowers, but Maria was nowhere to be found. Instead, it was me, putting a plastic bag around his head. That's how I got revenge on the man who killed my daughter. My brother did unforgivable things to my daughter in the basement at her own birthday party. I was at work when I got a phone call from my wife, who was screaming and crying her eyes out. I immediately followed her location to my brother's house, and my wife was loading our daughter onto a stretcher. Our daughter was completely blue and pale and covered in bruises. There was grease all over her hair, and clumps of hair had been torn out. The ambulance wheeled my daughter away, and I immediately ran over to confront my wife. She told me that our daughter had seen my brother cheating, and she threatened to tell someone. So my brother grabbed my daughter's arm and started dragging her into the basement by her hair. And when she struggled, he poured grease all over her to get her to stop. I just smiled and laughed because I was ready to ruin his life 10 times more. That night, I went into his room and replaced his depression medication with sugar pills, and I made sure he woke up that morning to an anonymous text saying he had intercourse with someone who had chlamydia. When he finally made it to work later, I sent everyone in his job a photo I'd found of him cheating on his wife with a homeless person, and a week later, he killed himself. Oh well. I'm the reason my ex's foot had to be amputated, and she'll never know it was me. I was at the gym and had just finished my set when I grabbed a 45-pound plate off the rack. I walked over to the horizontal storage pole and slid the plate onto it, but I was already thinking about my next exercise, so I only pushed it back halfway. It was dangling there, barely balanced, about 4 feet off the ground. I figured it was good enough, but I barely got to the other side of the gym when I heard it. A loud metallic bang followed immediately by the most horrific scream I'd ever heard. I spun around and saw my ex on the ground next to the weight rack, the 45-pound plate lying beside her. My stomach dropped when I saw which weight rack it was. Her face had gone completely white, and she was gasping for air between screams, clutching at her leg just above the ankle. I ran over and dropped to my knees next to her. Her foot was completely flattened into what looked like a pancake, the bones clearly shattered underneath and blood seeping through her sock. What kind of idiot left that there? Her voice came out high and panicked between sobs, tears streaming down her face. I looked around at the other gym members gathering. I don't know, but when I find this guy, I'm gonna make his face look like your foot. The ambulance rushed her to the hospital where they put her under and took the foot. The doctor said the bones were just mush, nothing left to save. 2 weeks later, I went to her apartment and sat her down on the couch. She was still learning to use crutches, propping them up beside her as I told her I couldn't do this anymore. Being with someone with one foot just wasn't something I could handle long term. Sometimes I feel guilty, but everyone makes mistakes. I was mad at my mom because she wouldn't buy me ice cream after I begged her for hours, so I started planning my revenge. On the way home, we had one last stop, so when my mom went inside another store and left me in the car, I decided to play a prank on her. She left the windows rolled down, just enough so I could slip out. I climbed outside and sat in a bush not far from the car. 6-year-old me sat there giggling, thinking it would be hilarious when my mom realized I wasn't there. When she did come out, I saw her drop her bags and scream. She was yelling my name, searching the entire car, checking underneath it. I thought the whole thing was so funny at the time. She called the cops who showed up quickly, and before I knew it, there were sirens and cops everywhere looking for me. I overheard someone telling my mom they saw a man grab me and run away, but I was confused. That didn't happen. Then I saw a helicopter overhead, and I knew it had gone too far. My mom was probably worried, but then I heard a scream. I jumped out of the bush ready to surprise my mom and just go home, but when I did, I saw her on the ground surrounded by paramedics. They immediately started giving her CPR, and I realized she was having a heart attack from the stress. I yelled, "Mom!" But before I could get over to them, the cops grabbed me. "Where have you been?" But I started crying and told them I just got lost. They raced her to the hospital, and when the doctor came out, he looked upset. He told me he knew what I did, but that she was alive and her heart was beating. She survived, but I never told her it was a prank.